Alrighty, guys and gals. I hope your season is going well. We're about halfway through. Thanks for sticking with the show. Make sure you go to sportingchancepod.com to get some Sporting Chance merch. New stuff coming soon. What we have up there is limited, and once it's gone, it's gone. Casey, are your goshawks still alive?
Yeah, surprisingly.
Well, if your goshawk is not alive, make sure you go to North Mountain Goshawks. Holla at our boy Seth Roy to put a deposit on next year's hunting partner. Casey, how's your gear holding up?
It's holding up good because it's from Midnight Falconry, the tightest braided equipment on the market. Visit midnightfalconry.com.
Casey, old boy, tell you what, I'm wearing out my squirrel chaps.
I'm sure you are.
Or as Joseph Carter would say, squirrel chaps. That's why I need to hop on to mountainstatefalconrysupply.com and order some new ones. You know, the best thing about that is...
What is that?
The customer service and the speed of shipping, baby.
What I'm talking about.
Heather's probably reading my mind right now, and they're probably going to show up tomorrow.
Your new chaps?
Chaps.
Chaps, that's right. Forgive me.
Casey, are you sick of your dogs this season?
We have good days and bad days.
I have been running the brakes off my dogs this season. I can't imagine doing falconry without my dogs. So if you do not have a dog, go to Clover Creek Canine on Facebook and talk to friend of the show, Sean O'Neill, about getting a new hunting partner.
Good idea. Can't go wrong. All right, everybody. Little public service announcement. We are killing it. We see the downloads. We can see everything behind the scenes, how many of you guys are listening and enjoying. The YouTube is, nobody really listens there, but if you could listen there or at least go and subscribe the Sporting Chance podcast Facebook page and YouTube page, we'd appreciate it. Also, little thing for you guys to jump in on. If you leave us a 5-star review on whatever your preferred podcast platform is, we will send you a sticker in the mail. Now, obviously, we have a lot of listeners, so we can't send full sticker packs or anything crazy, but we will send you a sticker, and we appreciate the support. And if you leave a 5-star review, send a screenshot to the Sporting Chance podcast Instagram, or even me on my main Instagram, NJ Falconry. I will make sure that we get a sticker out to you ASAP. Appreciate it, guys. Now enjoy this episode.
Okay, everybody, welcome back to the Sporting Chance podcast. Today we are joined by special guest Jeremy Roselle. Jeremy's up in the Great White North calling in. We appreciate you, man.
Yeah, I appreciate you guys having me on.
It's our pleasure.
So we talked before the recording started. You started falconry in the United States, correct?
I did. It would be about the mid-90s. I started in Central California.
That seems like a great place to start falconry.
It was at the time. I think a lot of my buddies down there still would probably say, "Oh yeah, it's not what it used to be." But I think the Merlin guys still have it good in California. I mean, I think it's always going to be a great place to fly Merlins, but everything else has become a real challenge per se.
Does that include rabbits?
It does. I remember in the Sacramento area, which is where all the CHC meets used to be. We used to walk into fields there around Arco Arena, like where the Sacramento Kings played. You know, they were a new basketball team at the time, and they were like 5-10 miles out of town. And those fields out there that were butted up against neighborhoods and whatnot. I mean, I'm not even exaggerating. There was one in particular next to an In-N-Out burger that Jeremy Bradshaw and myself and another guy named Sal, we stopped to get a burger at lunch, and Sal goes, "Look at that." And it was a field that basically had like 3-inch tall grass in it. It was probably a 50-acre field. And I kid you not, there was between 75 and 100 black-tailed jackrabbits just walking around. I mean, it was ridiculous. I mean, it was one of those old stories literally where, you know, guys as birds would, like Harris hawks in particular, would just stop chasing. They wouldn't even know what the hell to do. They're they were overstimulated. It was like, well, where do I start?
So you think that is like too much for a bird?
I think it can be. I mean, some of them, I guess if you have them at just that perfect weight, they're going to smoke the first one that's right in front of them. But if it dekes them and they miss, and then all of a sudden 30 or 40 get up and they start running across a 50-acre field, then the bird, it's you can literally see it. It's almost like a computer that just catches on fire. It's like too much data at once. Like they just.
I had a situation like that.
Yeah, they just don't know which one to chase. Like they just kind of go up and land on a pole again. And what they do is funny is all the ones that are running around, they ignore and they just look for a sitter that's out like 100 yards out that just moved its ear. And then they just fly out and do a big 30-foot wing over and slam that one. And they totally ignore all the ones that are running around.
There's a Chinese proverb that I'm always quoting and changing slightly depending on what we're after. But it's the man who chases two rabbits catches neither. So
I guess. Yeah. I mean, that's crazy.
I say it a lot when we're squirrel hawking, because if you see two squirrels in a tree, I'm like, oh, great. Two squirrels. Now they're not going to know which one to chase. They're going to divide their attention between two squirrels.
And we had a proverb in college where we used to say, chase as many girls as you can because eventually you're bound to land one. So I guess maybe that doesn't pertain to the situation, but maybe it could.
We like a lot of female slips.
It's the same concept, I think. The only time I ever had a situation like that, Jeremy, where my bird just stopped chasing and just sat there and stared, believe it or not, was in North Carolina with my co-host.
Yeah.
The state that has no rabbits. We saw more rabbits in this one patch than I've ever seen in my life, to the point where my goshawk Betsy, my maid bird, she just sat there and they're just like a ping pong ball all over. And she just stopped chasing after like 20 minutes of just missing.
Oh, yeah. Well,
she just sat there and watched.
I mean, I learned real quickly getting into this sport that when somebody tells you, oh, nah, there's no pheasant there, and you're talking to a guy that catches a lot of shit and you're just like, no, there's loads of pheasants there. Like when I first went and worked for Dave Jamieson in Reno, Nevada, kind of, started to get to know all these big falcon breeders. And, at the time you're just thinking, oh, I'm going to be a falcon breeder. I'm going to sell birds to the Middle East. This is like 35 years ago. And all of them, I mean, they're still close friends of mine, but at the time they were all like, no, the glory days are over. Like the market's washed up, you don't want to do that, and, here they are for another 20 years, just killing it financially. And you're just thinking, man, I should have freaking followed my gut.
I wish the audience could see me roll my eyes every time Casey tells that story.
Oh, but yeah, I heard that on a podcast, probably Well, I don't know how old the podcast was, but it was probably one of your last 5 or 6 podcasts. And
yeah, he mentions it every chance he can get. But
I think you were talking to Jackie, actually. And you were talking about ironically, the best place I've ever seen in my life is down in North Carolina. So
I was told that the rabbits are real hard. They're not around.
Then you know what? You can't go to that spot this year. You're going to go to every other freaking rabbit spot, and you're going to see what it's like. We're going to give you a little dose of reality. You're not going to have your little grassy fields like you have in New Jersey.
Oh,
that are covered with rabbit shit.
I'm bleeding. I've been hawking for a week. I haven't caught a single thing.
Sounds like a personal problem.
Sounds like a thick cover problem.
Yeah, I got to defend Aaron on this a little bit, though. This year, we're having a really bad hare year. Snowshoe hare. The worst I've seen since I've lived in Alberta. And but I've got a county park that always has, women in their mid-40s in Subarus coming up, walking their Labradoodles around these little nature trails. And it's pretty remote in there. So I feel like a creep. First off, here I am in the bushes, like, oh, never mind me. Every time a woman catches sight of me and I'm like 30 feet into the bush there, I'm just like, hey, I'm like trying to be super nice. Like, hey, my name's Jeremy. I'm just like, okay, if he's gonna tell me a thing.
That's so fun. I think any falconer that hunts in any kind of like urban area has that same experience where you're like, I tell people, I'm not a creep. I'm not crazy. I literally have a dog and I have a bird. See that bird? That's my bird.
Exactly.
Not trying to stalk you. We're all good here.
Into this situation like 3 days ago with this new goshawk that I'm trying to get going, and I was at the very end of the hunt. I'm trying to get this snowshoe hare to move, and this bird's never even been entered on game. She's basically sat for 3 years, and I'm trying to do her a favor, which might eventually do me a favor. But I'm trying to show her game, and I've got this hare. I know it's right in front of me, and I've got the Brittany in there, and this lady on cross country skis with her dog just ends up like she's 10 feet from me before I even see her, and I just felt like a total idiot. But anyways, but in Aaron's defense, if you came up here right now, Casey, you'd be like, oh yeah, like it's not that great up there. Like, I mean, yeah, we saw hare tracks, and we moved one or two in an hour. If I took you to this park, and then when I say it's a park, it's like 20 miles out of town, like out in the middle of agricultural fields, and it's just this big quarter section, which is like 100 and something acres of bush that's native, like never been touched. And there's rough grouse in it, but it is absolutely loaded with snowshoe hare this year. More than it's always been my best spot, but this year it's like double what I've ever seen it.
There's the spot that Casey is talking about and the situation he's talking about. The property, I've never been there, first of all, until that day. It's owned by a game warden. Him and his dad manage it. Not only that, there were probably, no joke, 12 brush beaters and 8 dogs that day.
Yeah.
So I would hope we would see a lot of rabbits that day.
No, it had nothing to do with that.
Go there by yourself and see what happens.
No, by yourself, you'll catch rabbit. Like you'll catch a rabbit. The problem was that your bird would chase one, it'd put in, go up and mark it. And while you're walking to the bird, the people on your left and right, like literally, like you had like, how many people we had? Like 15 people in the field, 20 people?
I'm so tired of this story. It's unreal.
Like out of the 15 people,
I'm so tired of this story.
Out of the 15 people, while you're walking to where your bird just put in a rabbit, out of the 15 walking in a row, 12 of them would flush rabbits at their feet. That's the kind of spot we were in. I'm not even joking.
I think that you're right, Casey. And every single falconer down here doesn't know what we're talking about. And
that's not the point I'm trying to make. It's a joke.
And we need more smart people from New Jersey to come down and show us how we need to do things, I think is really what it is. So thank you. I'm looking forward to seeing you. I'm looking forward to seeing you this weekend, buddy.
This coming weekend. I'm going to counter that argument, and I'm going to say, what is the bag limit of rabbits in North Carolina per day?
5.
It's 6.
I think it's 5.
It's 6, and Jersey is 4.
I don't really know.
So that tells you everything you need to know. You have more rabbits than.
Or maybe we're just backwards rednecks down here, and we don't care about conservation and game.
All right, enough of this conversation. Let's move along here.
So, Jeremy, you started in Central California, and it was a great place to hawk.
It was, yeah, and I think in some aspects it probably still is. I haven't really been outside of seeing my family for 3 or 4 days here and there. I haven't really done anything in California in a long time. But just from what I gather, I've still got good friends there. So
from there, it sounds like you went to Nevada.
Yeah, I went to Reno, Nevada. Jeremy Bradshaw, a close friend of mine, got a job up there. He was actually working for Mark Moglich for a bit that summer and helping with the breeding facility. And then he jumped over to Dave Jameson's and then basically said, Dave, if you need another guy, I've got a buddy that wants to work. And after about a week of thinking about it, Dave's like, yeah, have him come on up. And so I ended up in Reno, Nevada, worked for Dave for a couple of seasons. One of the nicest, most gracious, funniest guys you'll ever meet. I mean, he is just an absolute gift of a human being, let alone to falconry. I mean, the guy's just awesome. So he kind of took me under his wing and really helped me out, kind of get established in Reno. And then I found a trade that I got into, landscaping, through another buddy of mine that I met there. And yeah, that's kind of how I ended up in Reno. And then I ended up marrying a gal that I met there. She was at the university there at UNR, and she wanted to go to grad school to be a rangeland ecologist. And I was like, oh shit, I got to marry this gal. She wants to study, prairies and grouse and its effect on birds and wildlife. I'm like, oh yeah, this is a keeper. So we went up to Moscow, Idaho, which is up kind of in the Panhandle, just south of Coeur d'Alene, and great long wing country, goshawk, on upland game, really good area for that. We basically had huns, pheasant, chukar, and quail all in that area. And we had ruffed grouse. Moscow was probably 5 miles from the tree line. So we had ruffed grouse, and we even had turkeys.
Wow.
And basically focused. I think I caught just a boatload of huns when I was there. Lots of pheasant, quite a few quail, but I focused mostly on huns. And then I even managed a ruffed grouse while I was there. And then actually, ironically, a couple of half-grown turkeys with the terrestrial hare's hawk that I was flying on in the big cliffs and canyons of the Snake River drainage, which is a huge drop, probably a 1,500 to 2,000 foot elevation drop. So
Casey was loving. I could read Casey's face when you said half-grown turkeys. He was like, "Oh," and then you said Harris hawk, and then I just see
I
it.
know. He's like, I know. I was watching his face too. I was like, "Oh man." You know what else? I mean, we don't have to get into the whole Harris hawk debate, but when I was young and dumb, I had a stupid saying that, anybody can fly a Harris hawk, and I would, in Casey's defense, and I know Casey's saying that tongue in cheek, but I was like, and I was inspired by some guys that showed me the ropes, even with Harris hawks. I was like, yeah, whatever, catch some rabbits. And there's one guy in California, he was wicked with a Harris hawk, a terrestrial Harris hawk. And he was catching everything. I mean, it was actually a half Peruvian, half North American terrestrial that he had. And he was catching almost exclusively all upland game over a dog point on flights. And that really inspired me. And then I got to a point where I'm going to do this. And I did it with, there was a breeder in New Mexico named Matt Mitchell. I don't know if he's still breeding, but I think he's been on Jonathan's podcast. And
who is Jonathan?
Yeah, exactly.
You mean Mounier? You mean
Mounier? That's it. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm Canadian
Jonathan
now,
Mounier.
so you're gonna probably hear me apologize a bunch. So, but yeah, Mounier, he was on his podcast. Matt Mitchell. He had some little Texas birds. They weren't the Arizona Harris hawks. They were Texas. We just called them Texas terrestrials. And I got my hands on one. The thing was phenomenal. Like, that's the one I caught a couple of turkey with. He would catch valley quail, no problem, over dog points. Once he realized he could do it, he showed speed like, I've only seen a couple other male Harris hawks really show speed like that. But then he had one flight in particular on a rooster pheasant next to kind of a levee pond out in the middle of some agriculture. And this pheasant blew out. I wasn't expecting it. He takes off. I had my apprentice, and I think Jeremy Bradshaw was with me on this one. And my apprentice was there. He took off after this pheasant, and they were going, to the edge of the field, across the road, over a farmyard. And I was thinking, it's just going to go in the farmyard. So the hare, that was probably 300, 400 yards away. And the Harris hawk is trying to stay with this rooster pheasant. Lands on the roof of the house, of the old farmhouse. The Harris hawk lands on it for probably about 3 or 4 seconds, and then just takes off and keeps going over the farmyard, out into the field, even further. So we get to the edge of the road, we drive over by the farmhouse, and we just had basic telemetry back then, and I'm getting a signal, but it's not close. And I'm telling the guys, hey, just wait here. I'm looking out over, probably a mile of just flat ground of wheat stubble. And I get way out there. It probably takes me 10 or 12 minutes. I'm tracking. And I can still see the guys, but they're way off in the distance. And I look, and it's getting louder now. And I've probably gone 800 yards, maybe 1,000 yards. And, let's just call it a half a mile. And I look, and I can see in the wheat stubble, I can see this little black head going up and down, up and down, up and down. And I'm thinking, that's got to be my bird. And as I get closer, he's on the rooster pheasant, just blocking away. And we stepped it out. It was over a half a mile, maybe let's just call it, between a half a mile and 3/4 of a mile flight on rooster pheasant. But Harris hawks, they can be, I'm not the only guy that's done this, but especially the Tearsels, they can be wicked upland game birds. You're just not gonna blow shit up on the rise right in front of you, that often. I have, but not very often.
How do you think you get that kind of drive in them to pursue something that long?
I think it's confidence based. I've found that in all falconry. We had a saying back in the day, and I don't think it was mine, but Tearsel peregrines and Tearsel goshawks are all about confidence. A Tearsel goshawk will try to kill an elephant if it thinks it can. Tearsel peregrines, same way. You hear, I had one pull down a common merganser. And again, Bradshaw was with me, a guy named Marlo Stevens. I don't know if he's practicing anymore, so I'll mention his name. He was with me, and we had multiple ducks on a pond, and this thing comes down on power binds. This Tearsel peregrine was like 550 grams. And it comes down and power binds to like a pterodactyl. We got there and we were just laughing, and he's just riding its neck, gnawing on it. This like a common merganser, like they're huge. They actually have teeth. Like when they open their beak, and it's kind of got like a little toenail tooth on the tip of their beak. They've actually got like teeth inside their beak too. And it's lunging at the peregrine, and the peregrine's like, no, screw that. I can do this. Cause the bird had killed, he killed 100 times that year, and he probably killed, I think, every mallard I showed him, probably 7 or 8 mallards. And then he killed rooster pheasants. Again, it's just a confidence thing. And I think with the Harris hawk, same thing. You get out there at the end of August, you start showing them younger, 3/4 grown upland game birds that only fly 100 yards, 200 yards, and they start catching those. Eventually, they're just it doesn't matter. They're not going to stay with them like a goshawk. And even a goshawk on huns, when I say stay with them, they do, but huns are fast. A Harris hawk, it doesn't matter. They'll literally be 200 yards behind whatever they're chasing. And then they'll just mark it. And then you get over there and then you reflush it. And generally they get it on a reflush. So it's just not that high, exhilarating, in front of your face stuff like an accipiter might be. That's all.
No, I wish rabbits had that same issue. On the reflush, they're slower. That'd be nice.
Yeah. No, it's, some upland game birds aren't slower on a reflush. I guess it depends on how many times you reflush them. Like pheasants they're rockets. A good wild open prairie pheasant from the Dakotas or Saskatchewan or Alberta. They rock out. Different than I've seen them in Idaho or in other areas. But if your bird follows them and marks them, on the reflush, the first reflush, they're not going to be what they were when they first flushed. Quail, I'll speak only to valley quail. Valley quail are absolute rockets when they know there's a hawk in the field. They are rockets. But then if you find them and and your bird pins them and marks them, and you get over there, get your bird on the glove, and you reflush them, they're not so much rockets anymore. Because they've got that real white meat, breast muscle. It's not very oxygenated. They're rockets on the first one, but then after that, they're just shot. Huns are a darker breasted meat. You can reflush those, 2-3 times, and they're still giving it. They're still like, wow, okay, that's fast. And then you get into the grouse. Sharp-tailed grouse are just ridiculous. You hardly ever get a reflush, especially with a short wing on a sharp-tailed grouse. They're just, they'll just fly literally out of the county. I've seen them I've flown them with goshawks and got really close, and then they'll literally just get up, and it doesn't even look like they're trying that hard. They just kind of pump, glide, and they rock from right to left when they're doing it. And they'll just get up 300 feet, 400 feet, and they'll just literally fly out of binocular range at 400 feet.
How fast do you think some of these game birds are actually moving?
I've clocked huns. I've clocked huns more times than I can count. You're driving down a country highway at 60, 65 miles an hour, and then you see a covey of huns 100 feet out in the field, and they're pacing. Are they much faster than that? I don't know. If they have the wind behind them, I would guess Hun's probably 65, 70 miles an hour. Sharp-tailed grouse, let's just say again, I don't think anybody's got a real definitive speed on sharp-tailed grouse, but I would dare to say once they get up to speed, if they really wanted to, they could probably go, 5 or 10 miles an hour faster. So let's call it 70, anywhere between 70 and 80 miles per hour. But that's when you've got a goshawk chasing them, the difference between 60 miles an hour and 70, 75 miles an hour it makes your goshawk look stupid. Like even a good goshawk, and I've had the privilege of flying a couple that were really good. And then I'm seeing guys, on Instagram and whatnot Tyler Sladen's got one this year. I think it's his best goshawk from what I can see, just from a goshawk standpoint. When I watch that bird fly, he and I talk semi-regularly, and his bird is, from a month ago, I'll just go back a month because I haven't seen much of it in the last month. His bird is, in my brain, is about as conditioned and as confident as you're going to be right now. He's making quail look stupid. You put that bird on a sharp-tailed grouse, which I think he has intentions of doing here before the winter's over. I'd like to see it. I think it's, out of all the goshawks I've seen, I think that bird's probably got as good a chance as any at a legit flight. Now, when I say legit, I'm talking the first, let's just call it 200 feet. I won't even go 100 yards. I'll just go 200 feet. Because once they get out 200 feet, there's nothing catching them unless they bail into cover, and then your bird follows them in the cover, and you'll catch them in cover. But on a wide open, out in the middle of the prairies flight, 9 times out of 10, you're not catching them. And then the one time you caught them, it's in the first 50 feet. And then there's that, that 1% chance that you're going to get one 100 feet out. But, and I'm talking winter birds, wintertime birds. September birds are just different. They're just not as skilled. They lose their minds easier. They make mistakes. And all of a sudden you're like, boom, holy crap, I got one. And they're not fully feathered yet. They've still got blood in some of their feathers. Some of them, it's just different. But speed wise, I'll just speak to those. I think quail, Tyler would be the guy to ask on quail. I think we've all seen quail flush. I think there's some that are quicker off the start than others. I've heard bob white aren't super quick off the start, but they're still legit. California quail, I've heard, and then from hawking them, they're really fast off on the rise. And then I don't know much about Merns outside of talking to Tyler, but sounds like those things are kind of a combination between a Hun and a quail. But then there's rough grouse, which I know I've got into it in another podcast, and then as well as with Casey. Rough grouse, I think, to me, are for short wings. Obviously, you're not flying long wings on rough grouse, but for short wings, they're the holy grail. I think they're more of a prize than a sharp-tailed grouse, to be honest with you. I think sharp-tail and prairie chickens with a really good, confident goss that's killed, 100 upland game birds off a dog point. I would think, if you can get them in the first 30 feet on the rise, you probably got a shot. Rough grouse, I've literally had them right in front of me, and I can see them, and they know the goshawk's there. And it doesn't matter if they're 10 feet in front of you, you're just not catching them. Unless the cover is just so thick that they get caught up in it and the goshawk's able to bind to them and take them down. And once they get up to speed in the forest, in the canopy, and a lot of times they'll just go right above the trees when they really get pushed hard. I haven't myself caught any that way. Let's put it that way.
So you have caught rough grouse?
I've caught a few, yes. They got every bag in the trick, or every trick in the bag. I would argue that they're as explosive from the start as any game bird in North America. Like in the first 50 feet, they are just absolute rockets. And they're generally always in pretty heavy cover. They launch and fly so fast in that cover, and then the noise of them hitting their wings on all the branches, you're thinking, well, shit, I don't have to catch it. It's going to break its wing. And my goss will just go down and grab it. And like, they're so violent when they explode. And then the tricks that they have. I mean, I have my last tercel would chase them 400 or 500 yards through the trees, and you're looking on a GPS and he's just cranking, and they're below the canopy. Like they're above the understory, but below the actual tree canopy on these big 50, 60 foot aspens. And you're watching them on GPS and they're hauling ass. Like you're just going, oh my God. And then all of a sudden it just stops like 900 feet out. And you're thinking, oh God, please God, let this be the one. Let this be the one. I'm going to get there. I'm running as fast as I can. Please, when I get there, let this be the one. And if there's no snow on it doesn't matter. If there's snow on the ground, especially deep snow like we have now, like my Brittany can't even get around in the forest right now. I mean, she just sinks up to her chin. I mean, it's just wearing her out. If it's snow like that, the grouse will just dive right in. Like head first, just full blast. They'll just dive right into powdery snow. That's their first method of escape. And when there's snow on the ground like this, and then you got to try to find them. Well, they're 12 inches underneath, 15 inches underneath the snow. Like, unless your dog's 3 feet away from where they put in, you're not going to find that grouse again. But if there is just a little bit of snow or no snow, I mean, I've used this term before, but I always say they'll take your goss into deep water. They'll explode. They kind of always know where all the good, thick, really nasty cover is. They might fly 200, 300, 400 yards. And then when you get there and you find your goss up in the tree, looking down or totally bewildered, it depends on what happened. You're looking at the cover going, oh, okay, I can see why the flight ended here. And then what they'll do.
You were telling me when we were on the phone, we had a great conversation. You were saying that a rough grouse is kind of like a cottontail, but in the canopy, where they try to strip avian predators like how a cottontail will, like where they'll cut through thick stuff to try to pull that goss off of them, which is
that's it. And I've had some I had a female goss, actually. It was her first year. She wasn't a big one. She flew at like 850, 860. Most of our females in Alberta are absolute monsters. Let me back up. They're good size compared to the lower 48. But I was telling you, Casey, in our phone conversation that our males, for whatever reason, the males up here are monsters. I've never seen even a passer's bird flown below 720 grams. Most passer's birds that I've seen fly up here are, let's call it 730 to 760. And then our imprints are all like 780 to 810.
That's insane for a North American.
For whatever reason, I just don't. In our females, I've seen a few average, that you would say, well, that's an average size female, 850, 860. And then I've seen some passage females. Now, granted, who knows where they came from? They could have came from Alaska or the Yukon, just north of us, or the Northwest Territories. They tend to fly, most of the females up here, the passage birds tend to fly around 940, 950. And then the imprints, there's a breeder here in Alberta. His imprint flew at like 1,000, I believe, 1,020. But anyways, I flew this young female. She wasn't very big. She would chase grouse 200, 300, 400, 500 yards through the forest. And it's totally quiet out there, just dead quiet. And you're listening to her bell, ding, 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 ding. And she's following this thing through the forest. And then all of a sudden you hear this whack. And you're thinking, oh, that's the goss. But then like 1 second later, you hear another whack. And you're thinking, oh, no, okay, wait a minute. That's the goss. The first one was the grouse hitting the cover. And then the goss hit, 1 or 2 seconds later. And and I'm seeing this goss come out of a tree on this grouse. And this goss is like 20 feet behind this grouse. And the grouse is just, crapping its pants literally the whole way, just rocking out. So then when you get there, you're looking at it. And then when you can hear it, sometimes the flights only go 200 yards and you can hear it even better. You'll hear both of them hit the cover. And then like you're like, okay, you're looking at your phone on the GPS, and then 3 or 4 seconds later, you hear the grouse take off again. And it just comes up out of that 8 to 10 foot tall, I just call it moose brush because it's thicker than hell. And it just takes off. And then your goshawk's stuck in the brush trying to get up out of it. So by the time you get there, your goss is still like 4 feet off the ground trying to climb out of this spider web of nastiness. I've seen the East Coast stuff. I mean, to get to habitat, I've seen the East Coast stuff, some of the stuff on Casey's videos and whatnot. It's thick. I don't want to say, well, that's not very thick. Our stuff's way thicker. It's dense, I should say. Some of that stuff you guys hawk in is dense. Some of it's not.
Casey doesn't really hawk in dense stuff.
Yeah.
The only videos that make the Instagram or anything public are the ones that are semi-open. Everything else is not even worth posting because it's so
wink,
thick.
Wink, wink.
There you go. But good answer.
Am I going to post just a wall of brush in front of my face? Like there's nothing to see.
Yeah. And that's, to be honest, that's why I'm not a big Instagram guy, because of the same exact reason. Snowshoe hare just aren't found. Average cottontail habitat would probably be considered poor snowshoe hare habitat. The craziest cottontail habitat you've ever seen in your life would be considered normal snowshoe hare habitat.
So then how do you catch them? You just have to pressure them till they blow out of there?
You pressure them, you got your dog, you got yourself, whether it's grouse or hare, they're always in the thickest, nastiest stuff you could think of. And the difference between our cover and, cover I've seen down in the lower 48 is you might say, yeah, well, that willow or alder is 8 feet tall, 10 feet tall. And I've got lots of that stuff too. But our alder here can withstand 3 feet of snow load, can withstand a 2,000 pound bull moose walking through it and without breaking. So the actual density of our wood up here in the branches, you're not just going to run. Well, that's just a wispy bush. I'll just run right through it. No, you try to run through it, you get knocked on your ass. Like you're not. I mean, there's big animals up here that run through that stuff and big snows, and so it makes it really tough.
What do you think is the best dog for getting through that type of cover up there?
If there's no snow on the ground, then I would say okay. Even your dachshunds, your Jack Russells would be good. Your Yag Russell, mixes, Beagles are good. Once the snow hits the ground though, and you've got 12, 14, 15 inches of snow. Right now we've got 2 feet. Those dogs, you have to run with them. Like you just have to pick them up and run. There's times right now where I wish I had a little dash down. Or dachshund. I call them dachshund, but I'm not sure what the proper name is. But I wish I had them because I could just pick it up and run. And then when I get to this big, giant, 70-foot tall spruce tree that fell over and it's just caked in snow and there's all kinds of little tunnels in it, I would love to put a dog down in it. So to answer your question, any of the rabbit dogs that you're used to up here would work fine. I started off running beagles on snowshoe hare, but then a buddy of mine who's a hardcore goshawker, total mountain man, I nicknamed him the Wolverine. He looks like him, he acts like him. This guy's a total survivalist. He's been flying goshawks for 30 plus years. He knows where like 350 active nests are. It's just insane. This guy's he's just a freaking man, man's man.
Casey's looking very excited over there.
He makes, to be honest, Casey's kind of a manly guy. This guy,
Casey looks aroused.
Yeah,
I think I was just hoping Aaron needs to spend a little time around this guy, because I think when you spend time around,
I was going to say,
other manly men, your test levels they start rising.
This guy kind of makes you look gender fluid.
Like, oh shit, this my kind of guy.
Yeah, this guy's
no
legit.
Homo.
He's one of the he's. Canada does have men. They're mostly in the prairie states or prairie provinces, though.
Okay. Yeah.
But anyways, long story short, he ran with Brittany's. He had Brittany's, and I've always been a Brittany guy. And I was like, well, that's awesome because I've always had Brittany's, and and I've dabbled with a few other breeds. But for me, for rabbits now or hare, snowshoe hare, I would use a Brittany on everything. just because when you're in the forest and you're just like breaking brush in, Canadian forest per se, because that's where I'm at, you're not on a trail. You're going wherever the hare goes, and your dog's following it. And if they're 100 yards ahead of you, or the goss sees another hare and moves on it, sometimes you got the dog going left and it's on a hare, and then you've got your goshawk sees one 100 yards to the right and goes over and marks it. And then you get over there going, okay, let's, I can't get this thing up. Let's go where the dog's at. Well, you track the dog. Now let's say the dog's 150 yards from you, and the goshawks up here follow. I mean, once they know the game, they follow better than any bird I've ever seen in falconry. Like, they'll leave any red tail or hare's hawk I've ever seen in hundreds of thousands of hours of being a stupid gypsy falconer, sleeping on couches and hawking my brains out. Goshawks follow better. A good goshawk that knows the game follows better than any bird I've ever seen by leaps and bounds.
I'm so happy to hear you say that, because I agree 100%.
Yeah. It's but the beautiful thing about a Brittany, and I got it. I was just like, okay, wait a minute, I get this now. Is you go back to where your Brittany was, and your dog's on point, and your dog is now pointing a log, a big tree that fell over, and it's 10 feet away from it, and it's on point. And your goshawk's still following you from 200 yards away because it saw a different hare. And now you've got, where the flushing dogs, let's say like a dachshund or a yag or whatever, it wouldn't have been on point. It would have just chased that hare right out of there. And you're thinking, oh shit, well, we didn't get the one the gosh chased. And then the one the dog was on, he chased that one out of the county. So now we just got to find a third one. Nope. The one that your dog was on, your dog's pointing it. So now you can get your bird in a perfect position, and then you can utilize that flush.
That's such a good point. So a Brittany's a pointer, not a spaniel.
So, I mean, they used to be called Brittany Spaniels. So if you go back and to the origin of Brittany's, I don't think they're a very old breed. I think they're only like 200 or 250 years old. The way they originated was the English had English setters, and 150, 200 years ago, they had English setters, but there was a lot more land to hunt across the English Channel in France. So they would go over there and hang out. All the prestigious English guys would bring their English setters over to France, 26 miles away or whatever it is, across the channel. And then they would hawk, 10 times the amount of land with all their big estate owners over there. And they would hawk up upland game birds and whatnot. And then they would be time, the hunting season would end, and they would say, hey, it's time to go back. And the guys would just say, why don't you just leave your dogs here? We'll board them here. We already have all the facilities and whatnot. So what they did is they left all their English setters there. And then their English setters ended up getting a hold of what's called a field spaniel, not a cocker, not any of these other breeds. It was just your classic European field spaniel, probably very similar to a cocker, to be honest. And, then they ended up interbreeding with them. And then they came up with basically, and Brittany's literally are, if you look at them, they literally look like 50% English setter and 50% cocker spaniel or field spaniel. But then they finally just gave them their own name. They're not really a true spaniel, so they got rid of the spaniel. Now they're just called the Brittany. So they kind of do, but they're kind of the best of everything that you guys see with the springers and the cockers. If you don't really push them to point, they can be great dogs that just jump prey in front of you. But then if you work on that point, which comes very natural, I mean, they point as easily as good as any pointer I've ever had, and as naturally. Now you've got a dog that tracks and finds small prey animals like a springer or a cocker, but then it'll point them when it finds them. So to me, they're the ultimate for me. I mean, they're just every dog wrapped up in one, and they're not big, which is kind of nice too. So yeah, they worked out well for me. I'm a Brittany guy for sure.
And they can get through the deeper snow.
They can. I mean, the one I've got now she's 8 years old, and she ran into some hip issues a couple of years ago just from running her too hard in the forest. I mean, and even me, like I had sciatic nerve issues and foot issues. I mean, it's pretty gnarly when you're running on uneven ground and, black spruce bogs and tripping on branches and tree stumps, and the dog, it's even harder on him, I think. But I've got her, and then I've got another young pup that I'm going to be looking at getting here at the end of February that we're excited about, from the top Brittany breeder in Canada. So
exciting.
So yeah, it should be good.
The guy who does...
leg. Oh, I'm sorry, Aaron.
No, go ahead.
Just because the cocker, like a cocker, there's shorter leg, and a Brittany's kind of got a little bit of a more leg to him, kind of like a Springer Spaniel.
I got
a little more height to him.
Yeah, I got sidetracked from your question there. Yeah, so the Brittany I have now, I would consider she's a liver and white, so a lot of people think she's a Springer. Plus, she's pretty stocky and not a very long-legged Brittany. I've had a couple in the last 35 years that were like that. She has a heavier coat on her. She looks like a Springer, really. If you look at her face, though, you're like, yeah, I can see a Brittany in there. Where most of them, I mean, I would say 8 out of 10 are more of those long-legged, more elegant, thinner-bodied Brittany's. So, and that's probably what my next one will be, just based on the lineage and bloodlines that this lady has. But the one I've got now is more, I mean, she's still a Brittany, but she looks more like a Springer, just a little bit thicker bodied, shorter legged.
Gotcha. Okay.
So we kind of jumped into where you live now. So you went from Idaho to...
Yep.
Are you a Canadian citizen?
No, I'm a permanent resident. So I have to renew my permanent residency every 5 years.
Good for you. Keeps your test levels where they should be.
Yeah, exactly.
Once you become a permanent resident, then everything all your tests just drops when you become a permanent resident. A citizen.
A citizen. The next step would become a citizen. So then once I'm a citizen, I wouldn't have to. I'd be a dual citizen because I'll never give up my U.S. citizenship.
Well, you were talking about Wolverine earlier. The character is actually Canadian.
I thought he was the actual comic book character. I was going to say Hugh Jackman's Australian. And trust me, there is no other Wolverine than Hugh Jackman. Yeah. I mean, they're gonna try to come up with a new one. Nah, not gonna work.
Yeah.
At least anyways, I'm a Hugh Jackman fan, but
what's funny is the first, this has nothing to do with hunting and sports, but the first X-Men cartoon I saw came out in like 1989, and it was called Pride of the X-Men. Pride with a Y in it for Kitty Pryde, the girl who could go through walls. And the Wolverine in that, because Wolverine was not a big character.
Casey's grinning right now about Pride, and I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah, Casey's the pride of New Jersey, by the way.
Exactly.
No, I'm not.
Yeah.
But Wolverine in that was Australian. I thought that's the funniest thing in the world.
No kidding, huh?
Yeah, he's called Dingo and stuff like that. He's got
that's funny because
that's
almost like a Simpson episode where the Simpsons, told the future 30 years before it happened.
Pride of the X-Men told the future. So
that's crazy.
You moved to Canada.
Yep.
America, falconry is the most highly regulated hunting activity there is. How is it in Canada?
I'm just going to speak to Alberta, and I do know a little bit about the other provinces as well. I think BC, I don't know. In some ways they have it better than us. In some ways they have it worse than us. I think British Columbia does. Saskatchewan's better than us in some ways. Maybe not quite as good in a few others, but pretty good. Alberta, I know back east, like above you guys, like Ontario and Quebec. I mean, they didn't even have wild take till not that long ago. Speaking, I know NAF has been a subject on a few of your last podcasts. Martin Gallen's, he's basically, from what I understand, I could be wrong on this, but from what I understand, he is basically the reason why Ontario got wild take.
That's awesome. He should be proud of that.
And we don't have to, I mean, we can talk about NAF here in a bit. I don't want to jump around too much, but Martin Gallen's we're like lucky to have him as in Canada, and I think Americans should be grateful that they got him. I mean, he's freaking awesome. So, as a NAFA president, but I would say in some ways we're more lax than the U.S. The only thing I don't like is here in Alberta, we are mandated to be a member of a club. If you want to be a falconer, you have to be a member of a club. And that has created a few issues in the past.
That's kind of strange.
So and we kind of self-police in that aspect. Even though really at the end of the day, it's a government ran, I'll just call it a hobby. I mean, it's a sport, a government regulated sport. In my brain, I'm like, okay, then there should really be no self-policing unless it's like gross negligence, unless somebody's, got a bird tied up to a chain link fence or whatever, or a barbed wire fence, then you're like, hey, just, if you catch wind of that, yeah, you got to do what's best for the bird. But to self-police at every level, I just think, for me, it's just probably not the best. That's what law enforcement's for, and that's what you call them. And hopefully they got good judgment, and you can, let them do their job. So,
what did you have to do to get legal as an American falconer when you moved to
American
Canada?
falconer? I had to be a resident in Alberta. I'll just speak to Alberta again. I had to live here, so I could come here on a work visa, but I have to live here for 6 months before I can become a falconer. But since I got up here and I was already a permanent resident of Canada, I actually had my permanent resident card. I wasn't a citizen. I can't vote. But I mean, to this day, I can't vote. I used to think that was a bad thing, but anyways, not to get into politics, but now I almost don't even care to vote anymore. But I was a permanent resident, so I was able to get a falconry permit immediately for Alberta, and that's kind of it. I didn't, I just had a letter from my past fishing game in Idaho, just saying, yeah, Jeremy's been a falconer for this long here in Idaho, and from what we understand, he was a falconer all the way, back in the mid 90s in California. And that's all they needed. And I knew enough of the guys here that were in the club and that making decisions. I was already friends with them that they were like, yeah, whatever.
So if you weren't friends with them, would you have had trouble getting into the sport?
I probably, and nothing against them. I think they would have basically wanted to maybe know a little bit more. They would have.
Scary though, when, your falconry depends on the opinions of others.
Well, it does, and I think, and that's where the whole self-policing thing comes in, and that I didn't particularly love. And since then, it's not really the club is not really big on self-policing. It's not like we're all watching each other like, what are you doing? It's nothing like that. It's pretty good. But now there's 2 clubs up here, so if you did have I'm a member of both, but if you did have an option or an issue with somebody, you could always join the other one. But yeah, I would say it's not that difficult. Fish and Wildlife pretty much stays out of your hair. They don't, as long as you're like, I hunt a lot of natural areas, or crown land, they called it, land that's basically, it's almost like BLM land, basically. If you're parked there and it's deer season, yeah, Fish and Wildlife's going to pull up, and they pretty much always think they're going to be, sneaking up on a deer hunter, and then you walk out with your hawk and they're like, oh, you're a falconer, huh? I've heard about you guys, so they're all pretty cool. I've never had any issues up here. So
it sounds like a nice place to practice the sport.
It's not too bad. The cold, obviously we do Celsius up here, which took me a while to get used to, but like minus 20 Celsius, anything colder than that kind of sucks. And minus 20 Celsius is about -2, -3 Fahrenheit below zero, like 3 below zero. But once you get to that point, especially if there's any kind of breeze, and I'm talking like a 5 mile an hour breeze or more, it sucks. And the older you get, it gets just even worse. I'm over those, like the novelty of like, oh, I can't wait to fly a falcon on grouse and, -5, I'm going to show freaking how hardcore I am. No. I'm not a latte guy, that's for damn sure, but I'll be drinking straight black coffee in my truck while you're out there doing it, though.
So on the subject of grouse, we'll be going back to the United States. The sage grouse, you said you've been sage grouse hawking before?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah. So I didn't do a lot of grouse hawking in the States just because I didn't live in areas that, like I said, I think I popped a couple of rough grouse. Interestingly enough, one of them was that terrestrial Harris hawk that I told you about that had those huge monster flights on pheasant. He caught one in the fork of a tree down a slope from me. I was walking through like a clear cut, and he flew like, I don't know, a couple hundred feet down. And I was like, oh, what the hell is he seeing? boom, he just smoked this rough grouse sitting in the crotch of a tree, like 10 feet off the ground. But traditional grouse, like let's just call it sage grouse, I've hawked those a few times. First time ever was at the vernal meet in Napa, I think in 2005. I had them in Nevada when I was working for Dave Jamieson, but I just never, they were always like 3-4 hour drive away, and I wasn't rich. Driving 3 hours back then, I mean, and you had to have a truck and the resources. I was kind of a starving kind of college kind of gypsy falconer guy, but I did go to eastern Idaho and hawked them. I've hawked them in Montana. I hawked them in eastern Idaho with a gentleman out there that's really well known. I kind of touched on before the show, we had an incident with his dog. I think everybody kind of knew what happened on that. But yeah, sure. Sage grouse. I have hawked sage grouse. Knocked, and to be completely transparent, I've never caught one. One was a bad spot by a guy, a really well-known longwinger and falcon breeder. He's like, "Oh, I swear it's there. I saw it." And I'm just like, "Are you sure?" And, we didn't have a dog out. And he's like, "Nope, I would fly it." And I'm like, "Okay, let me just recap what you just said. You would fly that?" "Yep, I'd fly it." Me being young and naive at the time, I not even taken into consideration he still had 2 falcons to fly. So he's like, "Yeah, I'd fly it." So in his brain, he's thinking, well, if it is a grouse, great. If not, then we got Jeremy out of the way, and then I'm up next. So I think that's basically what happened. My bird went up 1,000+ feet. I had a Gyr peregrine at the time, and yeah, it took us like 15 minutes to get him to come back down just because he was pissed. Like, no, flush something. So yeah, sage grouse, I have hawked them, but I have never caught one. I had just to keep rambling on here, when I was in eastern Idaho, right before I came to Canada, I went out to a well-known falconer longwinger's house out there. He was gracious enough to have me out. It was just he and I, and we went hawking just for sage grouse. That's all we were looking for. One day we actually looked for sharp-tailed, but I was flying a tiercel prairie at the time, a passage bird, and I was flying a Gyr peregrine tiercel that used to be a sky trial bird. It was a friend of mine that wasn't flying him anymore, so I took him, and he was flown in the sky trials for years. I think it was a 10-year-old bird at the time. So I had this little tandem of birds, and this falconer I'm with, he had just caught a sage grouse with his tundra female. This is like probably 2 years after they allowed passage take, and down in South Padre. He had a tundra female, and I'm like, "Oh, this would be cool. I've never seen a tundra bird fly." And his bird, smoked one, no problem. It's up way high, came down and got one. And we're driving along, and his English pointer goes on point. And I think I had flew my hybrid already. He knocked one down and ended up chasing it like a mile away, and we had to go pick him up. And the only thing left was my tiercel prairie. And this little tiercel prairie passage bird flew at like 570 grams. And he's like, "Are you going to fly it?" And I said, "No, I got a tiercel prairie falcon." He's like, "No, come on, do it." Because I've done it before, and another, well-known longwinger, he did it years ago, back in the 80s. And I'm like, "Really?" He's like, "Yeah, just give it a shot, man. I mean, you never know." I'm thinking, well, I came all the way to eastern Idaho from northern Idaho. It was probably a 7-hour drive. And I'm like, all right, let's do it. So I put this tiercel prairie up, and he was a high flyer. I mean, he had killed quite a few hunts at that point. And he goes way, way, way up. And we go in and we flush. And I think only 3 or 4 got up. And he comes down, just clobbers this hen sage grouse. And he knocks, literally, she's out like maybe 150, 200 feet, knocks her down. And he does, prairie falcons, passage birds are really good at doing wingovers. Does like this 25-foot backflip, like corkscrew, like he's just going to come down and slam her. And he slams her, just like does this backflip coming out of his stoop. And he slams her, and he binds to basically right between her shoulder blades and her neck, and binds to her. And I'm just sitting there with my jaw dropped. I'm just thinking, are you freaking kidding me? I just caught a sage grouse with a tiercel prairie falcon. And it's almost, I mean, if obviously I didn't see this, but if it was a cartoon, The sage grouse at that point would have looked back at me directly in the face and smiled and winked, because she basically just got up and flew away with the prairie falcon in between her shoulder blades. And he didn't let go until she was probably about 70 or 80 feet out. And she was just flying away with him. Like, okay, like, I'm going to where I'm going. If you're going to come, then hang on. And he let go. And at that point, the falconer, he says, well, get down on your knees, get down. And I'm like, what? And I'm going, holy crap, I can't believe that just happened. And he goes, well, hold on, there's more, because the dog's still on point. And the bird goes right back up. The bird only went up maybe 600 feet this time. And I'm thinking, I don't give a shit. Let's do this. I'm freaking jacked now. Like, we're going to get one of these things. Boom. 2 more get up. And one of them's a boomer. Like a big beast. Like, it's, it looks like a damn turkey. He comes down and hits this thing and hits this sage grouse. And the sage grouse basically, it's like you hit a sparrow on your windshield while you were driving down the highway. And the prairie falcon bounces off the sage grouse and hits the sagebrush and just crash lands. And Hub's like, I just said his name now. Hubert Quaid's the gentleman that had me out. And he's like, hold on. I'm like, no, there's no holding on. We're done. I'm just like, no. So he gave me the sage grouse that his tundra bird had just caught. And I threw it out on the 2-track road that we were on. And then the prairie just came in and landed on it. And if you go on my Facebook way back, you'll see a picture of a prairie falcon on a sage grouse. And then that's what happened there. So
to me, that's got to be like the king of North American game for a bird.
From a long winging standpoint, I would say it's up there, but I wouldn't say it's the king.
What do you think?
Prairie chickens for sure are going to be. They're going to be the real prize. I mean, and I'm not, sharp-tailed grouse, I would say would be, maybe right there with sage grouse. And I think sage grouse I would almost classify them third. They're not hard to get a foot on for your bird. They're just big. I mean, I think to me, granted, when they get up to speed, they could definitely rock out, but they're easy for dogs. I mean, I had a young Brittany at the time who to this day, she's passed away now, but she was my number one dog I've ever had. She was phenomenal. And she was pointing her first time ever. She was pointing sage grouse from like 250, 300 yards out. And I'm thinking, and I'm with, the same gentleman. And I'm thinking, oh yeah, they're like 50 feet in front of her, 100 feet in front of her. He's like, no, we just kept walking. And the dog was, I kept releasing her and she would walk another 50 feet and stop and another 100 feet and stop. And they're not hard to scent. They're a big, stinky bird. And when they get up slower than other grouse for sure. When they get up to top speed, yeah, they can move. And they don't have the move. They're just a big bird. They're not as maneuverable.
So the challenge is getting to, going somewhere where they are, I guess, not so
finding
much.
Them. Yeah, finding them to me is half the battle. Sorry to interrupt you, but because they're in, Wyoming and Eastern Idaho and Montana. They're in some big country. And if you miss them by a quarter of a mile, half a mile with your dog, like, you're not seeing them. And you might be on a 2-track road where there's only two-track roads going through a huge valley. And if your dog is not sweeping right through where they're at, you're not going to see them. They might just be 200 yards further than what was practical that day. So finding them can be an issue. But once you do, especially with a good bird that's flown on sage grouse, you can get them. Sharp-tailed grouse, I would say they're I don't know if they're faster, because I don't think anybody's actually done top end speeds, but they're quicker, more maneuverable, harder to get a foot on. And they do that, they do the sharp-tailed grouse roll. Long wingers call it the move.
I guess I'm thinking like trophy, as far as like, to me, because I'm totally ignorant. I caught a bobwhite quail one time. That's the only upland game I've ever caught. But as far as like, to me, the not even a novice, just totally ignorant to upland game, that to me, that giant grouse from those big open places just seems like such a trophy.
It is. I will agree with you on that, because where they're found is just, I mean, if there ever is God's country, sharp-tailed grouse are generally found there. And they're a big bird, and they're dynamic looking when you get them in your hands. And there's just an absolutely phenomenally neat bird. But from an actual catching them standpoint, I would say they're easier than sharp-tail, or definitely easier than prairie chickens. I would say if it went 1, 2, and 3, prairie chickens being 1, sharp-tail being 2, and sage grouse being 3. I've seen some sharp-tail flights that I would say, man, that's as hard as a prairie chicken flight. And then I've seen some sharp-tail flights that I'm like, wow, that wasn't too hard. That maybe that was a little bit more like a sage grouse flight. Like they got a foot on it easy.
I think this was a prairie chicken going around on social media this week it was a wild prairie chicken and a wild goshawk. Did you guys see that?
I did not. I got to check that out though.
Yeah, I'll see if I can send it to everybody. But I believe it was a wild prairie chicken and a wild goshawk. Somebody observed out west, and the goshawk just like bounced off the chicken, and the chicken got away.
Yeah, I mean, I would have to see the video. I mean, that could obviously happen.
It was a series of pictures.
I would say, I've flown goshawks as much as I've flown longwings, and I would say that's more just maybe it deked at the last second, and the goshawk just kind of didn't get a good foot out the way. Because once a goss gets a hold of a prairie chicken, it's if it gets a decent hold, not even a great hold, it's probably over. Goshawks are just totally legit that way. But I have seen even huns where I've seen I had a really good tiercel goshawk that killed. He killed like triple figure huns one year. He sometimes would get so overzealous on the rise that he would just body slam him. Like the hun would deke and, maybe shift to the right real quick, and he would actually just pile drive him right into the dirt. And you're thinking, oh, he got it. And then the hun just gets up and scampers away, and then the tail chase is on. And you're thinking, how did he not get that? Well, it's like he didn't even get his feet out quick enough. So, maybe something like that happened with that chicken. I don't want to take anything away from prairie chickens. They're tough.
So. It looked like I'm looking at the picture now. Aaron just sent me the picture. It looks like it was on the ground, and the goshawk came in on it as it was getting up on the rise, like taking off.
And I think that's how most of those flights probably are in the wild.
Yeah. And it was like over top of it. And then you could see it lost grip. Maybe it grabbed a wing and slipped out of its feet. And then the way that the wings are shorter on the grouse, so it was able to pop and get up and get moving faster than the goshawk could.
Yeah. They're buzzsaws.
Sweet picture though.
Any kind of prairie grouse, or especially rough grouse, it's like starting a chainsaw that's already at full throttle. Like when you pull the cord, it's already at 10,000 RPM. That's how those grouse are, and they literally just and they just spin around like a tornado when they're doing it, trying to break free. Rough grouse are not the softest, the most loose feathered bird I've ever seen. Like worse than mourning doves. Like if you look at a rough grouse, it's probably going to lose 3 or 4 body feathers. Like it's crazy, and rightfully so, because they're really their only predator in the wild. I guess you got lynx and maybe bobcats if you got them in the lower 48, and then goshawks. I would dare to say goshawks and owls, or great horned owls, are probably their main predators.
That's a good point. Yeah, I could imagine them just catching them while they're roosting.
Yeah, I've had flights where I'm actually in the forest and my goshawks follow me through the trees. And I've had rough grouse come in from who knows how far out. They'll just come in and land like 150 feet in front of me. I'll just see them coming through the trees, and I'll, because, if you're in an area that's where the understory is only, let's say, belly high, and then the rest of it's all, treetops, aspens, you can see grouse from 200-300 feet away. They'll come in and land like 100 feet from me, not even knowing that I'm there or the goshawks there. So I think that's what goshawks do. They just sit in a tree. If they're up in a tree with a foot tucked, And then there's rough grouse, and there's always more rough grouse than what you're seeing. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've walked by rough grouse, not even known it. And I turn around looking for the dog, and the dog's on the same trail as me, 30 feet from behind me on point. And I'm like, are you kidding me? I just walked by that like 4 seconds ago. And then the goshawk's, up in a tree, 50 feet up following. And then I go back and then I look and I'm like, holy Jesus, there's a freaking rough grouse 4 feet off the trail. I walked right by it. And that's with no leaves on the trees. I mean, like nothing. I mean, it's just sticks. And I'm looking like, oh my God, how did I miss that? Well, the rough grouse, they don't care. They're used to moose and deer and elk walking around all the time in the forest. If there's a goshawk, they will literally, I most of the time, I have to shovel kick them. Like, you don't want to kick them to hurt them, but you just kind of scoop kick them just to get them to flush, because you're banging a branch that they're on with another stick or your walking stick or whatever. And you're like, I'm actually going to have to physically hit this damn thing.
So
and it's not even looking at you.
You could kill it with a stick in those situations.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
That's funny. There's this falconer that hates Casey. That's on that. I think they live in Canada, actually. And they brag about shooting grouse, and they're shooting them when they're doing the, they hang out by the road and they fly up to a tree branch and they shoot them. And then
I think she's just shooting them out of the window of her car, to be honest. That's what I heard, at least.
Yeah, and that's the easiest way to find them. You just drive logging roads up here. And even in Idaho, when I lived in Idaho, that's what we did. You just drive miles of logging roads. And back east, I've got a fair number of grouse. Some years are better than others, but back east, like in Ontario and Quebec, they have way more than us, from what I gather. And they just find them on the roads. They'll car hawk them from the roads. They're probably shooting. And they call them fool's grouse. I mean, those forest grouse are what you've heard that term fool's grouse. You're not hearing that about sharp-tailed or prairie chickens or sage grouse. When you hear that old, redneck term fool's grouse, that's always, most of the time, rough grouse, spruce grouse, and then sometimes even blue grouse.
Yeah, that's the only grouse, like on that TV show Alone, where we had Jake Messenger on.
Yeah,
he was on that show, and that's, if you watch that show consistently, that's the only grouse that'll just sit like right in front of the contestant as they like draw their bow back and like shoot, and then they miss, and then the grouse is like turns, and it's like 10 feet in front of them. He gets another arrow, and they draw back. It's like it just sits there.
Well, like rough grouse, I don't generally get. I've had a few I got pretty close to. They were on the ground. I'm walking down a trail, and then all of a sudden they jump up onto a tree branch, 20 feet above you or whatever. I've had that happen a few times, but most of the time, 20 feet from them, 30 feet. If there's no goshawk, that you're flying, you're just walking, you'll bump them. But spruce grouse, in my experience, they're the ones that you'll walk, you'll see them on the trail, you'll get 10 feet from them, and they'll just jump 6 feet up onto a branch, like at eye level. And then you can get like 6 feet from them. And you're just like, holy, man, you're like, I should just like walk with the goshawk hidden behind my coat and just, throw it at you or whatever. But then when you do that, they're a completely different animal. Like, they're freaking rockets. Once they see a hawk, it's like they're not fools anymore. They're super smart, and they're ridiculously explosive.
It's like when gun hunters wonder why we only go out and catch a couple gray squirrels with our hawks.
Yeah.
They're like, that's all you got? And we're like, bro, go out in the woods with a hawk. They act totally different.
Oh, well, even Huns do. Like, I took a gun hunter. This guy's a hardcore gunner. He's like a trophy hunter, and his wife's a big time. She goes elk hunting on her own. She's like 5'3", 110 pounds soaking wet. She goes into the Canadian Rockies for 5 days at a time on her own, and uses her satellite phone to call her husband and all the other hunting buddies to help pack elk out that she just shot. And I took them out, and he's been, gun hunting Huns for, since he was a kid. And I took him out with that goshawk, that Tiercel goshawk I had that killed all those Huns. He's like, holy, I've never seen Huns fly that fast. And I said, yeah, like when there's a natural predator on their ass, like they're a completely different animal.
So I don't want to go too far past this, and if you don't want to talk about it, that's okay. But you had mentioned earlier in Idaho making the news.
Oh, yeah. So that was that flight with the Tiercel prairie falcon on the sage grouse. I think a lot of guys caught wind of this, so I can mention his name. But we were basically running his dog on the way out. His dog was outside the truck, and he's like, yeah, I'll just run the dog some more as we're driving out of here. And either that or no, he had a passenger female deer that he was going to fly. We had one bird left to fly. That's what it was. And he's running his English pointer, and it's probably 400 yards out off the 2-track and running, and we could see it, kind of going up and over little high spots and this and that in the sagebrush. And pretty soon we can't get a signal anymore. And it's really faint. And so we triangulate it, and we're thinking, okay, the dog has got to be, there was only like 2-tracks out there. The dog has got to be kind of where we last saw it. So we get out of the truck, and it's getting close to dark. Like it's probably, the sun's behind the mountains there, but the mountains are huge. It's behind the mountain, but it's probably an hour from complete darkness. And oh man, it just kills me to even tell the story again because it was just sickening when it happened. We basically are hiking through the sagebrush, and the signal's getting louder, and it's getting louder. And then I see what basically looks like a giant anthill, like I don't know if you guys have ant lions back east, the little things that hunt. They build like a little funnel in the sand, and when the ants walk into it, the little ant lion starts flicking sand, and it makes them slide down the little embankment of this little reverse cone.
Casey probably did very weird things with those when he was a kid.
Oh, I did. You don't even have to go Casey. I did it
They're
all the
under
time.
under my grandma's deck, and I would
same here.
Run around and find ants, and then try to not kill the ants. And I'd crawl back under the deck, and then I'd drop them.
Drop them in there. I did that. I did that. It was awesome. So I find that. So, anyways, I find this big thing. We're like 100 feet from it. I'm like, that looks like a giant crater, like kind of like an antlion thing. And as we get closer to it, the signal is just banging. And we walk up the side of this little crater. And as soon as we walk up, I look, and there's a hole in the ground straight down. That's probably 15 feet round. And it just, it's huge. You're just thinking that this is like off that movie Tremors when we were kids. And it just goes straight down to black. Like I can see probably 30 feet, 40 feet down before the whole, before it got too black. And just from the hole, not even from the darkness outside. And he points his receiver down, and it's just banging. And I'm just like, oh, I almost got sick to my stomach. And he was just like, oh my God. And I'm, so this English pointer is running through the sagebrush, comes up over this little hump of tailings. And before I could even put on the brakes, falls down this giant mine shaft. And we're like, oh my God. And then he said the dog's name. His dog's name was Coffee. And he said the dog's name. And I think just out of sadness and desperation, like, are you there? And we heard a little rock move, and we heard a whimper. Yeah, man, it almost brings tears to my eyes telling it again, because I'm a total dog guy. And I'm just like, oh my God. And he's like, oh my God. So we actually went, we didn't know what to do. We're like, well, we can't even, who knows how far? We dropped like a little rock, like the size of a quarter. And it just kept going, and you could hear it hit the bottom. And we're like, okay, well, the dog is alive. You can't just leave the damn thing there. Even if it was dead, I'd probably still try to get it. But if it's alive, we can't leave it there. We raced into a small town, went to the fire station. It's dark already at this point. And they were like, yeah, it's a small town. They're kind of bored. But they were loaded for bear, man. They had big rig trucks with winches on them and hoists and search and rescue gear and everything. And they had like 20 guys show up, 7 or 8 search and rescue vehicles. They were just trailblazing through full on mature sagebrush. I've got a big truck, but I wouldn't have done what they did. And they go out to this mine shaft, and we all get out there with headlamps on and whatnot, and they lower down the search and rescue guys, and we heard a couple more whimpers when we got there. It's 3 hours have gone by now, and they go down, and guy puts a harness on. They lower him down. He says, "Yeah, the dog's coherent. And I don't know how injured it is, but it's alert." And he grabs the dog, and they hoist him all the way back up. We basically counted how many arm pulls on the rope it was, so we could tell how deep the hole was when it came up, all the slack that we used. And then we figured it was about 50 to 60 feet deep. So basically, your average telephone pole, on any kind of given road, is going to be like, let's say 30 feet high. So it was about a 1.5 telephone poles deep, this exploration hole. And the dog, and here's the deal. The sidewalls, there were no ledges. There were no like anything to break its fall. It was, as smooth as you're going to get. It's like you just took a big 12-inch auger bit, that's 15 feet around. But like, I don't know if you guys have ever augered a hole for posts or whatever. It was as smooth as that. So it's not like, the dog basically, it may have hit the sidewalls going down, but it was straight vertical, 40 to 50 feet deep. And the dog, I think he took it to the vet the next morning. Turns out the search and rescue guys got a hold of, the local news caught wind of it. And then they did an interview, with the search and rescue guys real quickly. And then it made national news. It was on like CNN and Fox News and all that stuff. And I think the next morning, the local news lady came to the guy's house and interviewed him about the dog. And the dog was, for the most part, if I didn't tell you that story, you would have came over that morning and thought the dog was fine. So just crazy.
So the dog lived and everything was okay?
100%. Yeah.
Wow.
It lived. It was fine. I think it had a little tiny limp on its back leg. And then I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think he got x-rays done. I could be wrong in this, but I thought I remember something about like a little bit of a chipped vertebrae. Just a little flake of a chip on one of its vertebrae.
Now, was that state property?
It was. So,
sounds like a nice lawsuit.
Yeah, which leads to, I don't know whatever came of it, but I know that's something, these decommissioned mine shafts. We were talking to search and rescue. We're like, man, you could have been walking through here at night, just doing whatever, out there looking for fossils or rocks or whatever. And a huge snowdrift went over the top of it, and you're walking and all of a sudden you fall 50, 60 feet. Like, this shouldn't be legal. This is on BLM land. Like, this should not be legal. And they were like, oh yeah, for sure. We're going to look into it. I don't know whatever came of it, but again, that dog had
probably like some caution tape over it now.
I guess, I don't know, but, or at least put chain link, worst case scenario, pound 10 or 15, aluminum posts into the ground and wrap it with chain link, the entrance, at least then animals. I don't know how many skeletons were down there from probably deer.
That's probably what broke her fall, is a big pile of skeletons and fur.
Yeah, it could be. But yeah, there was that. But telemetry, I remember leaving that and saying, I will never run my dogs ever again without telemetry.
I'm right there with you.
Yeah, like it's just, especially when I'm in the forest, I wouldn't, like, it makes me sick to my stomach thinking about running my dog without telemetry in the forest. I've driven a half hour to a good snowshoe hare spot from my house, gotten there and realized I forgot my damn telemetry for my dog. And, I run GPS on her, and I'm like, okay, I'm either not running her or I'm going back home and getting my telemetry.
I can do more with telemetry because I have GPS. I'm not worried about where my dog is. I look at it and I go, all right, he's good. So I don't need to waste my time calling him or looking for him. I know where he's at.
Yeah, same here. Exactly. And it's, and up here with the predators, I was telling Casey, I've had some pretty crazy hairy experiences up in the Rocky Mountains hunting snowshoe hare. And I actually had a sport dog. Our Garmin is crap up here. Canadian government is only licensed or has access to like 7 satellites. Where the US, you guys have like 35 satellites you guys can latch onto at any given moment. So your guys' Garmin's work way better. the Canadian military won't allow us to use that sort of system up here because it interferes with what they've got going on. So we have basically these generic, I'll just call it generic for lack of better terms, telemetry setups up here. So that have access to way less satellites than you guys do down there. So there's moments throughout the afternoon where you lose your dog signal. And that happened to me with a beagle up in the Rocky Mountains, where I ran into that situation. But when you've got big predators around, it's just too risky. Like if you've got to get to your dog quickly, you got to get to them like right now. You got to know where they're at. So, and GPS, it's standard telemetry for sure, but GPS is definitely the way to go.
Yeah, 100%. It's just hard to find. I mean, obviously running dachshunds, it's hard to find something that fits them that's not too bulky. Like the smallest Garmin for a dachshund is way too big. It's just way too big.
Is that is it the little mini alpha as they call it or something?
The mini alpha, which is too big for a Jack Russell Terrier.
No kidding. I've never seen one, but I've always been curious about how big they were, and that answers that.
They're way too big. They look ridiculous.
I think the Dogtra Mini is what I have, and I know that I have it, but I think it's the smallest one. And
I've got Dogtra now. I've got a Dogtra now too. Yeah, it's a standard. I don't have the mini, but the standard, even on my Brittany, I'm like, okay, I wouldn't want to go any bigger.
How much is the Dogtra Mini compared to like another GPS transmitter, like a Marshall GPS?
You get the GPS unit and a collar. I think is like $500.
Yeah, I think we pay $650 Canadian, which is pretty much the exchange rate, and then per 500. So it's because it's $7 to your dollar or 70 cents to your dollar. So yeah, that's about right. So for as far as GPS goes, if money is an issue, I would recommend getting the Dogtra. It's definitely cheaper than Garmin, but if money's not an issue, definitely get a Garmin.
How much is a Marshall GPS? Just if you already have the Pocket Link and one transmitter for your bird, how much is another transmitter?
I think they're like, Canadian. God, I think they're almost like $900 Canadian, but I think they're like $700 US or something. Last I checked.
And then you just place an order with Midnight Falconry, and you get the bracket that mounts onto the collar that has the threads for the easy twist, and you just thread it in there. It mounts right on the collar, and you're good to go.
I think I might do that, but the only problem I've got is again the forest up here. Because I'll always fly a goshawk, and I'll probably always fly a falcon. That would be great out where I fly my falcon, but once they get into the bush, and I'm chasing snowshoe hare or rough grouse, like I'm lucky that I even go home with my shoes and my chaps and my belt. Like everything snags on me and gets tore. I mean, I literally got my chaps tore one day. Like they just ripped right off my right leg. I was so frustrated. I just said to hell with it. I just threw it back in my pantyhose vest. And I was like, are you kidding me? This thing's like Cordura. So if I put a little Marshall transmitter with, the wire sticking off of it, there's a long winger south of me, a real well-known guy, a good friend of mine. He runs Marshall GPS on his English pointers, but he's out in the wide open wheat stubble. But once you get into the forest, like you're probably going to lose it. Like I had a Marshall Scout that I used to gorilla tape, like the best duct tape you can buy. I gorilla taped it onto a dog collar. And I'm thinking, oh yeah, this is a Marshall Scout. This thing will last 45 days and, great. And I got all the way home, 45 minutes from my house. I get home and we were hawking in the snow that day. Went to take it off her collar, gone. And that was gorilla taped on. Like you couldn't even see the transmitter. And half the wire you couldn't even see.
No, I know. But that's what I'm saying. Midnight Falconer, he makes a 3D printed hard plastic, like very thick.
Is it like a sleeve?
Your collar slides through it, and then it has a little capsule, and you slide the transmitter in, and you can thread, and it has an easy twist threading, so you could just thread the whole transmitter. That's what I run on my. I alternate from one dog to the next, whichever dog doesn't really listen. So Franny last year, she was really bad. She just disappeared on me. Now she stays right with me. I'm like not even concerned, and obviously the Sprocker Spaniel just stays right with me. She ain't going anywhere. But Maggie, the dog I got from Aaron, she ranges pretty decently. Yeah. So now she has the transmitter on her collar because
I got you.
I'm not made of money, Otherwise, the Sprocker doesn't need one. She she'll be trailing a rabbit, and then she just comes back and looks for me, and then I'm like,
Yeah.
it's okay, keep going, and then she'll go back and keep trailing it. So I don't have to worry about her. But the dachshunds, other dogs, they want to go. You know what I mean? Like, you don't know where
whatever
they are.
dog pisses you off the most that day, you just don't put the transmitter on. So
yeah, but then I've done that before. But then when I can't find them, then I have to go find them, because it's like as much as I just want to get in the car and drive home, it's different when it's a bird. A bird pisses you off, you just leave. Like, all right, you're either going to be there in the morning. But a dog, like, you can't.
No way.
You got kids and the wife. You don't look like a psychopath. Like, you got to go back.
No.
You got to bring the dog home.
That was a total joke, but it's. I think when I was younger, I probably had a few weird thoughts, like, "Oh, you bastard! What's going on, dog? You need to start listening." I'm just becoming a soft old man now. But my dogs, I baby the hell out of them. But yeah, I couldn't. I would literally sleep in the field or in the forest all night, calling them the entire night. I could not leave a dog in the forest.
No, there's
just no freaking way.
You can't. I New Year's Eve, I went hawking on New Year's Eve. Big mistake. 2 years before this New Year's Eve, Karen killed herself. I was like, I shouldn't even go. I went anyway. It gets dark at 5 o'clock. I got home at like 9 o'clock at night. Franny and Maggie went down a hole. Maggie would not come out, and Franny would not come out. I don't think they were stuck. They just would not come out. And I just called my wife. Baby was taking a nap. I started digging with my little collapsible shovel.
I was going to ask you that.
Got down to one entrance into the hole, and then it took me like 2 hours to get that far. She showed up with the other shovels, and I'm digging and digging, and I'm like, I'm not going home. There's coyotes everywhere. So I'm like, even if I put a kennel by the entrance, they'll go. I've done that in Jersey, like in the residential areas where I had one dog that wouldn't come out of holes ever. And coincidentally, she ended up, not really a coincidence, but she ended up dying in a hole because that dog just would not come out of holes.
See, the problem you got, Case, is you're a plumber. So us landscapers, we can dig like gophers. So I know. We would have been at the bar at 7 o'clock having a beer because I would have had that dog out in no time.
That's a good point. I mean, that's a good point. Listen, if I'm going to dig a hole, you don't want a plumber digging your hole because you're just going to.
No, I was just going to say, no, if your dog went down like
$150 an hour to dig that hole.
Yeah, exactly.
150. I wouldn't even. I literally. I might have to close my business down. $450 an hour to dig a hole.
Yeah. Well, if my dog ever runs down a city sewer pipe, I'll call you.
Yeah, I'll put a snake down there. I'll latch onto its hide and pull it out.
Yeah. There you go. There you go.
Yeah, but I'm the same as you though, Jeremy. My point is, I was like years ago, I would literally leave the crate with the blanket by the entrance, come back at 2 a.m. and check. Go back home, come back at in the morning and in daylight and check. And if
you're not sleeping that night anyway. So that's the way I am.
Yeah, but when I was younger, I literally would go back. We'd set an alarm. My mom would get in the car. We'd drive back to the field, and Ellie would be in the crate sleeping under her blanket. And I would close the door, pick up the crate, put it back in the truck, and go home. And now that I'm older, I'm like, I just told my wife, I said, not coming home until I get her out, and I can see the exit. I can see the entrance, and I'm just going to just dig down to the tunnel, look in, dig down to the tunnel, and just keep doing that at 3-foot increments until I get to the exit, and she'll be there. Or there's a side passage, and then I'll follow it.
Sure.
And I think it was just she was very cold, and she shut down. And I think she was just in there just trying to stay warm.
Gotcha.
Because I saw Maggie, and Maggie's quite the character, and she didn't want to leave Franny in the hole. Or she just wanted to get what she thought Franny had. Because I would look in the entrance and see Franny looking at Maggie looking at me. And then she would see me back up in the hole, turn around. Aaron's like laughing. She would turn around and go back into the hole. Then I go all the way around to the entrance 30 feet away, the exit 30 feet away, shine my camera in with the light, and I'd see Maggie's stupid face at the exit looking at me.
Oh my gosh.
And then I'd be yelling at her to come out. Well, not yelling, because if you yell too much, then they definitely are not coming out.
Yeah.
So you have to pretend to be nice. And then she would see me, and then she'd back in it. And I'm like, okay, so Franny's in there, and Maggie doesn't want to leave her, or Maggie wants to be part of it. And then eventually Maggie came out, put her in the kennel. And then, 3 hours later, I'm digging, and then I turn around and I hear a noise behind me. I turn around like a friggin' ninja, and Franny's just sitting behind me, like covered in mud, just sitting behind me. I'm like, oh, all right. Load up all the shovels, hike back down the mountain to the truck, went home and celebrated New Year's. It was a freaking nightmare.
You know, it's funny you mentioned you just heard something coming up behind you. It reminds me, I had a red tail that I was flying. It was my apprentice's bird, and he wasn't doing much with it. And I was like, because I had a female Finnish goshawk that got electrocuted. The only bird I've ever had in 30-something years that got electrocuted. So I was like, oh my God, it's only like December 1st, and I'm freaking without a bird now. And my apprentice wasn't doing anything with this monster female eastern bird that he had. Because here in Alberta, we have a mix of everything. We got like pretty much every subspecies you can think of in North America. They all like form like a little roundabout here in Alberta. But he had this female that was flying like 1,350 grams. And so I'm like, yeah, I'll fly, whatever. I don't want to quit hawking yet. And she ends up smoking this snowshoe hare probably about 100 feet in front of me. And there was probably, 8 inches of snow on the ground. And she caught it right underneath this huge spruce tree that had fallen over. And so I get over there and I just got to her and I'm just reaching underneath to grab its back legs. And I hear this like, this like scampering of feet coming right towards me. And I'm thinking maybe it's my Brittany. But it just sounded different. And coming right down the length of the log, and it deked underneath the log and popped up on my side, probably 5 feet from me as a coyote. And it was coming because it heard the rabbit squealing. And, but anyways, long story short, I mean, I'm not too worried about a coyote myself, but had I not been there, yeah, like my dog or the bird, it would have been ugly. So
you had told us earlier, that's not the first hairy encounter you've had with predators.
Yeah, the Rocky Mountains, it was kind of a sadistic, weird lust that you had for it. I mean, the scenery was second to none. I mean, the Canadian Rockies, it basically looked like Banff and Jasper. It was just big, massive country. So you're not getting any prettier. So that aspect of it was really neat, the novelty of it. But the weird part, there was 2 things going on. You can get lost really quick. And the forests are super thick and super dense. There's times where, you can't see 60 feet in front of you, 50 feet in front of you. And in some areas, if the evergreens are young enough or black spruce, you can't see 10 feet in front of you. So you can get really disoriented very easily. And then the predators. I mean, I'm a California boy, so I'm up here in Canada, and I love nature and the outdoors and this and that, but I'm well aware of predators and what they can do. And where I was hawking at is really well known for grizzly bears. I think I told you guys before the podcast, there's a grizzly bear biologist in that Crow's Nest Pass area, which is basically it's probably 50 miles north as the crow flies from Glacier National Park in Montana, and straight north. And in that area, just in that 50-mile area, they put out bear fur traps where, the bears brush up against stuff and they trap their fur, do DNA samples. And there was over 250 different bears during this one summer in that area. Grizzly bears, I'm not talking black bears. So me being stupid hardcore guy that always feels like I need to push the envelope on everything that I do in falconry, I'm like, yeah, okay, well, that's what I'm going to do then. Okay, like you got millions of Huns around you, sharp-tailed grouse, but you're going to drive 90 minutes up into these mountains looking for snowshoe hare that aren't even really super abundant up in that area. Not like where I'm at now. And there's predators, and you're going to just trailblaze and go down these ravines and canyons in the dead of winter. Yeah, that's what I'm going to do. And so there was a couple times where, grizzly bears, I never ran into one, thank God. There was a time where I know I was around them, and there was one around me because I was seeing sign in the snow. And then there was one in particular, I think I even spooked it because it was probably only 150 feet from me. and it ran the other way, and it was loud. And moose don't typically do that. I run into moose all the time, and you got to be real careful with moose. I mean, they can be super dangerous, but they don't really do much until especially during the rut, like early season. You can walk damn near right up on them, like it's stupid. You're just thinking, man, I didn't know you were there. Why'd you let me get so close? During the midwinter, I don't run into them that often, but I can see where they were bedded down in the snow, and I heard them walking away. But in this case, I was seeing, huge grizzly bear tracks, and then I heard, some serious brush getting broken about 150 feet in front of me. So I can only assume that. But there was another case where I was telling Casey, I had my beagle. I had a beagle at the time, and this thing was a real squealer. He didn't bay like a bloodhound. He just
squeal too, by the way.
Yeah, he squealed like he was.
How did it? Did it sound? It sounded like.
Yeah, I was just gonna say like a redneck imitating a pig. Pretty much. I mean, that with a cry, so here, you know what it sounded like? It sounded like that, but then me kicking the shit out of Casey at the same time. So while he was imitating a pig.
I'd love to hear that.
Yeah.
Let me try.
Exactly. Pretty close. So you're waiting. Casey's been waiting the whole podcast for that.
Oh no, I was.
Anyway, so I'm on a big logging road. It's called the Trunk Road, and it basically goes from Crow's Nest Pass, Alberta, and it goes like 350 miles through the Rocky Mountains north, all the way up to like a place called Grand Prairie. And I'm on this road way up high elevation, subalpine fir and mostly spruce and fir trees at this time. I'm kind of above all the aspen areas, and lots of hare in this area. And on one side of the road, I had caught a couple of hare with this female goshawk. And I'm like, well, let's try the downhill side of the road. And so I park and I start walking down this slope thinking, oh, okay, well, 30 feet away, there's hare. There'll probably be hare on this side too. And there's a big creek way down there, like half a mile down. Probably be more hare down there. So I'm going and I'm not seeing any hare tracks. And I'm thinking, man, this sucks. Like, what's going on? Snowshoe hare are just so weird that way. And it just got done snowing probably about 3 hours earlier, because I did snow removal that night with my landscape company. And after we got done in the morning, I drove an hour and a half. So it had maybe 3 hours earlier had been snowing. And I see mountain lion tracks on the same deer trail that I'm on in the snow. There's probably about 8 inches of snow. And I'm going, oh shit, okay. And I'm looking at them like, okay, these are big cat, so it's got to be a mountain lion. So I'm like, okay, whatever, who knows when it happened. So I keep walking like another 50 feet, and then on the tree right next to me, the snow was kind of wind blown up against it, and I could see where it sprayed all over the tree. Sprayed urine.
How could you, was it just fresh, like dripping off the tree? Or
no, because it just got done snowing, and it looks like Casey peed all over the tree.
Gotcha.
Because that's something Casey
was. It really low off the ground?
I got to mark my territory.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Casey's like, yeah, it was almost at ground level. But no, you could see where it had sprayed. It's almost like you took a can of yellow spray paint, and stabbed it with an ice pick, and then it shot upwards up the tree trunk. So I'm thinking, I'm out of here. This is stupid. And there's no hare tracks here anyways. And clearly I've got a mountain lion that just came through this area, within the last hour or two. And I've got a beagle that sounds like Casey, which is just nothing but a predator call, easy meal. So I start trailblazing diagonally up this hill. I'm probably 150 yards, 200 yards down this drainage. And I start trailblazing in a direction that I pretty much assume my truck's in. And as I'm going, the goshawk's following. I'm like, oh, whatever, just let her follow me all the way to the truck, and I'll just call her down and we'll get the hell out of here. And she's following, and all of a sudden she takes off. ahead of me, which, she was prone to do because she followed really well. But it looked like she was going for something. And, I didn't want the beagle to start squealing because, that's the last thing I want to do when there's big predators around. But she goes and then she went to ground. Like she went down, not super hard, but went down. I was like, oh shit, she's on something. So I get through these little alders and whatnot. She's like 150 feet in front of me. I get there and she's on a deer. And the deer literally had basically a blood spot, like the size, 6 inches around on its neck. And that's it. And you can see a bunch of fur all over the place where the mountain lion had started to lick the fur off the deer right after it had killed it. And there was track. You could see in the snow where the scuffle was and the fight. And this deer is like, I kicked it. I picked the goshawk up and kicked the deer's leg, and it's full on, like semi-warm still. And I'm just going, oh shit. Not only am I trying to get away from a mountain lion here, I just walked right into a fresh kill, probably 30 minutes old. So then I'm looking around. I instantly look around and I'm looking, just looking where, if I was a mountain lion, where would I be? I'm looking up in the trees. I'm looking behind logs, just looking for a pair of eyeballs or anything. And I did that for like 10 seconds. And I just said, well, I'm not going to sit here and try to find it. I'm just going to get the hell out of here. So I hooded up the goshawk and just double tracked it. And it turns out I parked probably 150 yards from there. And the mountain lion kill was probably only maybe 50 feet from the road. So, I just walked straight up to the road, and then I looked down the logging road, and I was like, well, shit, I'm only like 100 yards from my truck. So out of all the places I could have done, went hawking that day, I ended up picking and choosing and releasing the bird right on a fresh mountain lion kill. So,
which, especially given the news right now, there was a lady killed in Colorado last week or the week before by a mountain lion.
Yeah, I think I just saw that. Yeah.
They're a dangerous animal, and the idea of having to deal with them when you're hawking is crazy.
Obviously, I'm out from California, and it seems like there's once every 3 or 4 years, there's, a couple bikers getting killed, and it's unfortunately usually women because they're just smaller. But regardless, there's a good friend of mine named Ben Kershidnan. He's probably the best. Well, I think many people think he's the best bird taxidermist in North America. But certainly in Canada, he's in Lethbridge. And I've been into his studio so many times, and he's had some big toms in there, some big male mountain lions. And they're mounted, they're ready to go. And you're looking at them and you're just going, oh my God. And I've seen, some of the females. I was like, okay, yeah, I wouldn't want to tangle with that. That would, maybe you could kill me. You look at a big tom, like they look like a pit bull. Their head, their skull structure. You look at the size of their teeth, and then the muscles. Obviously he's mounting this thing, but he's doing it to the best of his ability, and he's one of the best in North America. And you're thinking, okay, that's pretty much 98% of what that thing looked like. There's no freaking way a grown man, I don't care if you're 6'5", 300 pounds, you're not getting. If that cat is injured or hurt, you're not getting that thing off you. And the worst part about them is they're not running towards you face first, like, oh, here it comes, I'm going to try to position No, you're walking along and you literally just get sucker punched by a 150-pound cat that you never even heard coming from behind. Like you're not, it's over. Like you're not getting out of that.
Do you carry any protection with you when you're hawking, when you're worried about that stuff?
Aaron, what country do I live in again?
Maybe you carry do you carry a stick with you?
No, it's something at that time that I was kind of frustrated about, because I'm like, okay, I really enjoy this, but are you freaking kidding me? I can't pack anything.
Just tell them you want to kill yourself with it, then they'll let you have it.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I guess. But I could carry a shotgun.
You could carry bear spray, I guess, right?
Yeah, I got bear spray, but yeah, we just call that bear seasoning. That they just use that to It's like salt and
Mountain
pepper
lion
for
grabs you from behind, and you're trying to spray it in the face while it's latched onto your neck.
Exactly.
Yeah,
But,
I would much
think,
rather tangle with a mature black bear than a mountain lion, because at least a black bear is going to at least try to eat you like ass first. So at least you could try to like roll over and kick and fight. Like a mountain lion's, they're doing everything they can to get your throat.
Oh, well, yeah. Once they got you by the back of the neck or the throat,
you're done.
You're done.
Like this is an animal that can kill a bull moose, not a bull moose, a bull elk.
A bull elk, yeah,
like,
exactly.
Like any day of the week, they'll just fight a bull elk, get a hold of it, and kill it. And that thing weighs what, 500 pounds? And you're just like
more than that,
right?
Yeah, bull elk is like 750.
And they kill them on a regular basis. Like that's just part of their routine. So if you think you're going to do anything to a mature tom, like there's nothing you're going to do to that. I think a bobcat, honestly, could kill most people. I think.
I would agree with you because I think ounce for ounce, bobcats are, if they were the size of mountain lions, they would probably eat mountain lions. Like bobcats are the scrappiest, strongest, ounce for ounce, nastiest little things. Surprisingly enough, lynx aren't. Like we have lots of lynx where I'm at, and lynx are not that badass per se, for lack of better terms. There's video footage, I think it was on Instagram a few years back, of a fisher. Fishers, I don't know if it's routinely, but this guy got it all on video. It was in northern Alberta, and he's got this fisher that was for over a period of like a half an hour. He's got video footage of this fisher freeing this lynx multiple times and jumping on it and messing it up to the point that when it was finally said and done, I think the cameraman actually ended up spooking the fisher enough that it kind of scampered off, and then but he kept filming for like another minute. That lynx was dead. It was going to die. It was injured so badly and so disoriented. It was probably going to die of shock within the next 5 minutes. And then when the camera guy probably left, my guess is the fisher just came back, 30 minutes later and finished off the lynx. And fishers, they're not super big. I mean, obviously ounce for ounce, mustelids are probably the baddest creature on the planet. But now you take that and a bobcat, though. Bobcats are, I've seen those things scrap, and they scrap a lot harder than a lynx does, and they're a fair bit smaller.
Yeah, you see the videos of bobcats taking down like full-grown white-tailed deer, just grab them by the throat. It's not much bigger than a house cat, and they just jump on the back, swing around, grab by the throat, and
that's about like proportionally like a mountain lion grabbing a bull elk.
Yeah,
that's said it.
Good.
You said it, Jeremy. The mustelids are like the baddest pound for pound creatures on the planet.
Yeah. I don't think there's anything. I mean, I would say cats. I mean, cats. I love them and I hate them. I mean, I'd never own a house cat, but from a natural,
I'm gonna go get mine.
From a natural history standpoint, I mean, a tiger is like, oh my god, tigers are just so wicked, and I mean, I think they're even more prestigious and better than a lion. Like, I mean, tigers are just the real deal.
Well, they're significantly bigger too.
Yeah, exactly. Imagine if you had a Wolverine. If you had a Wolverine the size of a tiger, it would probably eat tigers.
Are you a reader, Jeremy?
Yeah. Yes and no.
You ever read The Man-Eaters of Qumran?
I have not read that. No.
So Jim Corbett, early 1900s. He's a Anglo-Indian, so like a white British colonist born in India.
Okay. Yep.
He hunted man-eating tigers in India and man-eating leopards. He killed the record man-eater. It was a tiger that killed, I believe, 438 people. And it was called the Man-Eater of Champawat. And
I can believe it.
He said when he would find a kill after the tiger had finished what it wanted to do, all that was left were little splinters of bone.
Oh, I can imagine. Yeah.
He said enough. He said about enough to fill a matchbox is what a tiger would leave.
That's correct. Yeah, that's impressive. But yeah, I mean, speaking of cats, I mean, lions are the king of the jungle. No, I mean, if leopards were the size of lions, they'd kill lions. Like leopards are freaking gnarly. As we all know, watching
Well, he had a story. He killed a leopard called the man-eater of Rudraprayag, and it killed 138 people as a leopard. He told a story about a room full of pilgrims that were traveling through, sleeping on the floor at night in India, and a woman woke up in the middle of the night screaming in pain, and they turned on the lamps, and she had a scratch on her, and she had thought a scorpion stung her.
Yeah.
And so they go, you're fine. And they turned off the lights. The next morning, they realized that somebody was missing from the room. So what had happened is the leopard walked in the room, grabbed the person by the neck, carried him out of the room, and on the way out, scratched the woman while I was walking out.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I can believe it. I mean,
some of those stories, Aaron, in that book, listeners, you got to listen to that book or read it, because there'll be people sleeping in a room, and the leopard would go into the room and step over people and grab somebody in the back of the room that they wanted. They would grab a specific person, grab them by the throat, and then drag them out of the room. Going past a whole bunch of people. It was so weird.
I know. I've
those stories are insane. It's crazy.
Yeah. Well, they're so stealthy. I don't think there's anything more stealthy than, mountain lions are pretty damn stealthy too, but leopards are just next level. I mean, those Instagram videos where they sneak into somebody's front driveway and snag a golden retriever right off the front porch in India. And it's just they make me sick because I love dogs, but it's like the dogs never, it's like the leopard smelling the dog's back an inch from it and the dog's sound asleep.
There's hundreds and hundreds of those videos. They're so hard to watch.
Oh, I can't watch them.
They just walk right up to the dog, and it's like your dog is like your alarm. That's why that's probably the reason why we had them originally, 10,000 years ago, is because they were like your alarm system. And you just watch this leopard just walk up to it and it's so creepy. They're like the screech owl. The way the screech owl looks at my son, my infant, it just stares at it loves I got a son. He's almost going to be 2 years old. And when he's sleeping in the crib, the screech owl flies into the room and lands on top of the thing and just stares into the crib like this. It's his favorite thing to do. It's so weird. But when you watch these videos, you watch the leopard, and it a lot of times they'll walk up to the dog and just stare at the dog.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden and then the dog just can't, and you just see the mouth open and no noise. And then it just drags. Oh my God. Yeah. It's hard to watch, man.
Well, and it's weird because it's like the leopard won't pounce because it needs the dog to react because that's what it's used to. So it literally just stares at the dog. It's like somebody walking up behind you and just putting their nose and 2 inches from your ear until you finally realize they're there.
Casey would do that to girls in the club back in the day.
Yeah. They didn't like that too much. They say, you want to dance? You want to dance with me? You want to dance?
Yeah, exactly. But it's funny. And then all of a sudden the dog's sound asleep, and then it finally smells the leopard. And then the dog smells it and then reacts, and then boom, it's over. It's just done.
Kind of like a goshawk if you think about it. Sometimes they don't want to, you got a squirrel pinned on top of a tree.
Oh, yeah.
And sometimes you got a gosh that'll just sit, it just stares at it. And then as soon as you smack the tree or do something, and the squirrel moves just a flinch, then your bird all of a sudden wants to chase it. It's so weird. It's like that reaction.
Yeah.
That predator prey reaction. Cats do the same thing. They'll catch a mouse and just stare at it. And as soon as it tries to run, they'd pounce on it. But anyway, so you take that and then you take the mustelids, and mustelids do all that in front of a crowd of people, and they don't even give a shit. They'll just be like, I'm so badass, I'll kill this thing in front of all you guys if you want to watch. I don't give a crap.
I like the videos of the weasels killing a snowshoe hare.
Oh, yeah.
Running it down the road. And we're talking weasels are 6 inches long or something.
It's funny. That reminds me, the first time I ever saw a snowshoe hare, I was living in northern Idaho, there in Moscow, and I was flying big falcons. But then we were only I think we were only 10 minutes from the tree line. So we drove up to a county park in the middle of the winter, and we were just going to kind of snowshoe around. And my wife was with me, and I think I had a buddy with me as well. And I'm walking right next to a creek, and then inside the canopy of all these spruce trees, there was no snow on the ground. There was only 2 or 3 inches of snow, but the snow hadn't reached the ground because it was so dense in there. And I look and I see this white object. And I'm thinking, maybe, what is that? Is that snow or whatever? And I look and it's a snowshoe hare. And I'm thinking, oh my God. In me, having killed hundreds and hundreds of jackrabbits and cottontail before that in falconry. I'm thinking, oh my God, I didn't know we had these things around here. I got to start hawking snowshoe hare. And then I'm thinking, well, where do I even look? And then, so I grabbed this hare and I'm thinking, I'm taking this thing home. This is like a freaking trophy. And I look and it had basically a hickey on the back of its neck, kind of on the side, but up towards its spine. It just had like a little red quarter-sized bloody hickey. And, right then you're thinking, well, a weasel killed this thing. There's no freaking way, this has got to be a weasel that killed it. Anything else would have just shredded it. So, but you're right. I mean, you see videos, now with Instagram and cell phones, you see videos all the time. And those things are gnarly. I mean, we do catch a lot of weasels up here. I hate to say it.
Oh, with the hawks?
Yeah, if you got a big enough, we have so many weasels.
That's crazy.
They turn white, just like the snowshoe hares. They have a little black tip on their tail and they have little black tips on their ears. But there's so many times that my birds are, they're moving on something. I'm like, oh, it's a hare. And I get in there. I'm like, oh shit, it's a weasel. So I'll just back right off.
What are the rules with that? Because I think Jersey and a couple other states, because it's like illegal, but then they switched it where you can catch fur bearers so that it doesn't, so you can keep it. You don't have to leave it there.
I think with weasels, Alberta is pretty lenient. I think with weasels, you could probably kill as many as you wanted to, I think. Like we can kill, when I say kill, that's a harsh word, but like we can hunt and take any kind of corvid.
Even ravens?
Ravens, you can shoot ravens all day long as it's private property. If it's crown land, like if it's like actual government land, you're not allowed to. We can kill 1,000 magpies a day. We can kill 1,000,000 crows a day. If we can kill red-winged blackbirds.
The heck?
We can kill.
For you.
I thought we lived in the land of the free, Casey. That's crazy.
Yeah, I guess not apparently because ravens and crows are. I think there's an argument to be made. Who did we have on? Was it Joseph Carter, Minkman? He was talking about how the ravens. It's a huge problem because now they have
out west have issues with them.
And they have unlimited nesting habitat now because every telephone pole, those highways going through those areas, now they have nesting habitat.
Oh, yeah.
And now they can just destroy like the gopher tortoise and all different things that they really couldn't get after before because there's no perching or.
Well, and then in the wintertime, they have, you would have winter kill, winter die off 300 years ago, like anything else. Now they don't because they've got landfills. They've got road kills. A deer gets hit by a car and scampers off the road 50 feet and keels over dead. Now the ravens are eating on it for 3 weeks straight. Like it's just, there's more ravens than there ever has been. In 30 years of falconry, I can see it clear as day.
Yeah. Yeah. They're all over Jersey. I saw one 2 days ago.
Yeah.
I love. And the only, it's a raven. Oh, how do you know it's not a crow? Because it's a crow the size of a female red tail. Right in front of your face. I'll
tell you what, the ravens, in California, we've got tons of ravens, especially in the high deserts down there. It's a real issue, but they are barely bigger than our crows. Our ravens up here are massive. And when you hear them and they cluck and they do all their weird little noises that ravens can do, it sounds like a freaking T-Rex. It doesn't sound like the ravens in the States. They sound more like crows, like down in the lower 48. The ones up here, especially when you go up towards like Fort Mac, where our oil sands are and all of our oil production is, that's like 5 hours north of me. They are massive up there. You go up there and you'll laugh. Like you'll talk like I am. You'll be like, hey, how was Alberta, Casey? That was pretty cool, but you should see the freaking ravens up there. Like they probably eat small kids. They're just massive.
No, they're huge. And no, they make crazy noises down here too. I was deer hunting a couple of years ago with me and my brother, and we're hiking through the snow, deep snow, fresh snow, dead silent, as you know, up in the mountain. Even in Jersey, you can get to places that are dead silent.
Yeah.
And we're hiking, and all we hear is like this crazy, like alien noise. And I'm like, what the heck? And I look up into the sky, and there's 2 ravens up there just floating in the wind, and they're making like this, like.
Oh yeah.
Not even that, Aaron. Not even that. It was like they were like talking and clicking and stuff up above us in the sky. It's so weird.
They almost sound like a Mayan bird or like a starling, like a starling and raven mix. Like they do the weirdest noises.
That's a really good observation. Exactly like that, where they do that. The starling noise mixed with it's just crazy noises they make.
Yeah.
Are you into taxidermy, Jeremy?
No, at one point, I don't collect. I mean, I did. The 100th Hun that I killed, I had a Tiercel peregrine when I moved up to the Palouse region there in eastern Washington. And he killed 100 Huns only because I was young and a turbo and being dumb. And there was a well-known falconer that said, you know, he's a pretty pretentious kind of guy and pretty arrogant. And he's like, yeah, I got the state record. And I go, well, how many Huns is that? He goes, 73 Huns. That bird's in my breeding project now. And I was like, okay. All right, asshole. This is my first falcon ever here. I'm going to see what I can do. So anyways, I killed 100 Huns that year, and it's the only thing I ever got mounted. So to answer your question.
Did you tell him?
I had this.
Did you make sure he knew that?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. This guy's, he's known for having an ego. So I think everybody was laughing. They were like, yep, the young buck came in and destroyed your, I look at it now being 55 years old and it was stupid. But at the time I was like, it gives me something to shoot for. So anyway, so I did it, and I got the 100th Hun that I killed that year with a Tiercel peregrine, the one that killed the merganser, the giant merganser I was telling you about. I got it mounted. And then I had a litter of German shorthair pups, and one of the pups got a hold of the mount when we were in the process of moving. My wife put the Hun mount on the couch, and one of the young pups goes up there and just shreds this thing. But that's it. I mean, as far as taxidermy, I think it's pretty cool. And being a hood maker, I've often dreamt of, I should just get into taxidermy, and I won't have to have dumb landscape employees working for me anymore and breaking all my stuff and. I don't need $150,000 skid steers and all that garbage. But yeah, I don't have a problem with it. If that answers your question.
I just figured that since you're an artist, you had mentioned your friend earlier that does the bird taxidermy, and that might be something that you were into.
I am. I mean, to finish it off, yeah, I'm definitely. I almost made a concerted effort to become a taxidermist, but when you're wife and a kid and paying a mortgage and trying to keep a landscape company going. If somebody said, hey, I'll take you under my wing after hours and just show you how to do this, I would have been all over it. But to try to learn from scratch or go to a taxidermy school, I just didn't have that ability.
I got exciting news for everybody. I just bought a book on how to mount squirrels.
There you go.
What the heck is that? Aaron's on a kick now. He's been driving. Anytime he's got some free time, he drives over an hour to heavy duty fox squirrel habitat, and he's trying to catch every color of fox squirrels he can.
The southern fox squirrel, there's quite the variety of color down here. We have the traditional like orange gray ones that people have everywhere else, but we also have jet black ones, whitish ones. I caught one a couple weeks ago that had it was like tan and silver with a real jet black muzzle. They're cool to catch, and I was thinking about earlier when you guys were saying, here's a fox squirrel, Jeremy. That's mine compared to. Oh, you can't really see that with the light, can you?
Try to turn it.
Really, but
I can see the black muzzle. Yeah. That's all I can see.
Oh yeah, I can see.
That's cool.
Yeah, I'm gonna mount that.
How far is that from the meet, Aaron? That location. We should go.
Which the thing is, so Jeremy said that earlier about driving a distance to go catch something. If they were here where I lived, I would have been catching them all my falconry career. But it's like I got to make a concerted effort to go drive to fox squirrel habitat, which is over an hour away.
To expand on that, I mean, I feel your pain because it's especially the prairie provinces like Alberta and Saskatchewan. Everything is like 3 hours apart. Like Edmonton, where I'm at now. I'm in a little suburb called Sherwood Park, right outside of Edmonton, on the east side of Edmonton. I can hunt snowshoe hare. I mean, we've got them probably 10 minutes from my house. But if I want to go to a spot where I can get access to and hunt good numbers of them for 2 hours straight, I'm driving 15, 20 minutes. And I've got multiple spots like that. But if I want to go hunt Hungarian partridge, which I've been on a kick, getting back into that the last couple of years, I got to drive an hour on a highway, 60 miles an hour just to get there. And then when I get there, I got to drive gravel roads for 2 hours. And then I got to drive, an hour back home. Or if you leave Edmonton, you're like, okay, whatever. It's not like, Casey, you being on, well, maybe even North Carolina, but you leave the city limits and then 3 miles later, you're in another town. And here you leave Edmonton. It's almost 1.1 million people. You leave, it's an hour and a half to get to Red Deer, which is south on the highway. There's nothing but farms in between. And that's, I think that's got 90,000 people, 100,000 people. And then you got to drive another hour and a half south of that to get to Calgary. And Calgary is like 1.2 million people. And then if you drive 2.5 hours south of Calgary, then you get to Lethbridge, where there's a couple well-known falconers down in that area. And so everything's like 3 hours apart. If you want to go to the mountains, it's 3 hours, going 60 miles an hour down the highway. On average, I put about 50,000 miles a year on my trucks, my own personal truck.
That's good to hear. I bought a truck last year with 15,000. I got 80,000 on my trucks this year. So in 1 year, I literally put that many miles on my truck.
Well, you're doing worse than me. I mean, granted, I'm a contractor too, so I'm doing estimates.
I'm commuting 45 minutes to an hour to my job sites and then driving around circles there. So it's same as you. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not just hawking, but
yeah. But then when I go hawking, then I drive an hour, and I'm kind of financially and emotionally kind of getting burnt out on driving an hour just to find hunts. So now I'm to the point where it's like, maybe I got to get back into, I've a snowshoe hare hawking a lot, and I'm thinking, I'm just going to do one of each, So I picked up this kind of a hand-me-down female Finnish bird that sat for 3 years, hasn't been entered ever on game, and I'm trying to get her going right now. And she's playing the game and doesn't mind my dogs, but she's watching hare. She just stares at them with her foot tucked. I got to get her a couple bags, and obviously that'll all change, but yeah. Anyways, I got my work cut out for me. We're having a bad hare year as well. Out of all the years that I've been hawking hare, this is for sure easily the worst I've seen it. So
what's your worst, or excuse me, I was thinking about worst hare year. I'm sorry. Okay, the hare year and you guys both being bald, I was trying to think of a joke, but
you're so stupid.
I've had bad hare years for about 25 years straight.
Yeah.
Casey's been having. How long have you had hair when I first met you, Casey? So you haven't been having that long.
I still got it there a little bit. It was just like
same here.
I just started going, it's there.
It just looked like George Costanza if you grew it out from Seinfeld.
No, I kept going to my barber, but I was spend when I was single. I told you I was spend $75 a week getting a shape up, the fade, the beard. This guy would freaking put the thing on my face with the steam and shape me up. The Dominican guys, and then at a certain point, it started to thin out, and I'd be like, bro, just do what you can, bro. Do what you can.
Casey,
He'd be like, Poppy, I got you, Poppy. And then eventually I would just see his eyes in the mirror when he's looking at my hair, and you would just see this defeated look, and I was like, all right, dude. We tried, bro. We tried to hang on as long as we could.
It's all
good, right?
We should let the missing link here finish this question though.
So the missing link, the hairy bipedal creature here.
Exactly.
My arms are the same way. So what is your preferred goshawk? Because you said you got a hand-me-down finish. What if you're going to
that's a good question. So that's a great question because I want to talk goshawks for a bit before we end this. My perfect goshawk, to be honest, is probably a big male. There's a guy down in Lethbridge that makes goshawks. He makes a lot of half North American, half Finnish, half Russian type birds, and they're all nice birds. They're super nice. I flew a male that flew, I think he started at 750, and then the heaviest I ever flew him in his third season, and he did really well, actually, was 840. But I'd say
For
right
a
now
male, that's insane. That's so big.
Yeah. Now, no, let's back up a little bit though. I'm flying. He did after 800 to 810 was probably a really good weight for him though. And he was a snowshoe hare machine. Like he just got so good on him. He's the kind of bird you can give him a half a crop, 3/4 of a crop, and on the way back to the truck, have your dog go on point and you just pop the hood off because he hasn't put down his crop yet and he just catch another one. But he's probably truly an 800 gram bird, 800, 810.
Think about where he lives, though, Casey. Very cold. Do you think that has anything to do with it?
Oh, it definitely would. I mean, starting that bird off in September, when it's 80 degrees outside up here, that bird's starting off around 750 was the lowest he ever was as a brown bird.
But still, 750s, that's a big weight to start from. That's a big bird.
And he was, and that was lean. I mean, you're like, oh my God, I don't want to take him a gram lower. Like I would never take him any lower than that. 770, 780 when it's warm. And, and then let's call it 8 to 830 when it's cold. He was a big bird, but he had big feet because he was half Finnish. And the hybrids, they just do. They just have big feet on them. And so that would be my bird of choice, Aaron. This female, I mean, granted, she hasn't had a fair shot at all. And she's probably got some behavior. Well, she does. She's got some behavioral issues that I'm trying to work with. But behind all that, I just look at her and I'm like, oh my God, I got to see this through with you. I mean, part of me is like, oh yeah, she's never going to amount to nothing. Just give her back to the guy. And, I think he's kind of done with her anyways. And a part of me is like, gosh, she's such a sweetheart. Like for a goshawk, I can see it in there. Like she has her moments where she, acts a little goofy, but out of all the goshawks I've had, she has moments where she's just chill. And it's like, oh man, if you would have got a fair shake from day one, you would have been one of those red tail hawk goshawks. Like it's just tame as a red tail. And so now that I've got her, I guess to expand on your question, Aaron, first off, it depends on what I'm hawking. This bird's not a huge bird. She probably is going to fly around 1150 is what she'll fly at, but she's got big feet. And if I'm hawking hare, I mean, it's neat with the tercel. And a lot of people said, oh, it's never been done with the tercel. And I think it had been done, but tercels can do snowshoe hares all day long. I think even a tercel North American, maybe not a dinky one, like a 620 gram tercel North American, because they have smaller feet as well. That you're still going to get a snowshoe hare. I'm not going to say don't do it. They're just going to lose a few. This tercel I had, he caught 78 or 80 snowshoe hares first season. And
that's cool.
He only got kicked off of one, literally only got kicked off of one snowshoe hare his first year. And then after that, I can honestly say he's never been kicked off a snowshoe hare. Like he's strong. Like when they go underneath a log, you could just, and it's squealing and screaming and he can't quite see him, but he's got him by the face and you can't see the face. You'll just see him just torque back with his wings, trying to rip it out from underneath the log. And this is snowshoe hare. They're bigger than cottontail. Like they're maybe not Easterns. They probably weigh the same as an Eastern cottontail, but they're lanky. They're longer.
Really? I thought they were significantly bigger for some reason. I know the feet are always like huge, but
they got huge back, really long legs, front and back, but the back ones especially, and then their back foot is just ridiculous. It looks like something like a cartoon character. But they're pretty lanky and super lean. They average 3 to 4.5 pounds. A big one would be 5.
All right. So yeah, I think a big cottontail is probably in that range somewhere close.
Yeah, like weight-wise. But if you put them next to each other, they're going to look longer and lankier than a cottontail for sure. But then the cottontail, you pick it up and it's like, oh, okay, that cottontail's kind of stout and compact. Probably weigh the same. But now, I mean, if I'm just going to hunt cottontail, I just get a female. With our brush as thick and as dense as it is, I mean, she's going to crash through it better.
So specifically, when you said big male, do you parent reared or imprint, chamber raised? Wild caught?
I've been, back when I was hunting just upland game off the glove with goshawks. I mean, that's all I did for years. I would have said, no, give me a small one and give me an imprint. And now that, granted, that was so long ago. That was before parent raised birds kind of became known, especially with these, European type parent raised birds. Because I think there's definitely a difference between a European parent reared and a North American parent reared. But I don't think it really mattered on upland game per se. I mean, I would choose an imprint, but now for sure. I just tried an imprint again. I'm like, I'm going to do it one more time. I'm going to get an imprint. I got one from Steve Schwartz down in Lethbridge, and gorgeous bird, good size. It was half Butioides and half Finnish. And it was going to fly around. It was going to start around 770 or so, I figured. And I did it, and I tame hacked my last one for like 3 weeks, and I didn't do this one. I just wasn't in a situation where I could tame hack it. And I'm like, I don't know. Maybe I've flown a lot of goshawks. I think I can pull this off. Nah, not in my neighborhood. Because in my neighborhood, everybody on the damn street, if they didn't know I was a falconer before, they knew I was a falconer now. He was loud, and I hadn't even got to a point where I was really lowering his weight yet. So to answer your question, Aaron, I would do parent reared for sure. There's pros and cons, obviously, to both. But if you get an average parent reared bird to a good parent reared bird, there's no question. Granted, you can get a parent reared bird that is jumpy and doesn't like dogs, and it's just like, oh man, okay, it's showing the goshawk in it. Then you're like, fuck, I should have got an imprint. But the best imprint, I don't think, is any better than the average parent reared bird. A good parent reared bird that doesn't mind your dog and is gamey and doesn't mind vehicles driving by 100 feet away or whatever, done. All day long, I'll never do an imprint ever again, like without a doubt. And I don't think, and they're not unicorns. I mean, finding a bird like that is not, it's not like that's the exception. No, like it's at least 50% of them, I think, can be that way.
I've had mixed experiences with parent reared. I've had two. One was that bird. It was the red tail. It was a goshawk with a red tail personality that I could pet. I could deal with it with no gloves. Anybody could be around it. Didn't care about dogs. Didn't care about cars. And then the other one I had was all those worst qualities of a goshawk that you don't want. And I don't.
What subspecies were they? Just out of curiosity.
That could really matter. And I don't have enough experience with goshawks to really know for sure. But the first one, of course, was Finnish, pure Finn, and real Finn. So parents from Finland.
Sure.
And then the second one was a Finnish mother and a North American father.
Okay, yeah. And that's what my Tearsel was, the real big one that did great. However, the first year he didn't mind any dog. And then as time went on, it's actually a reason why I moved him on, was because I did get a new dog, and he would not hawk with that new dog. Like under no circumstance.
I'll tell you the issue I have with parent reared is if you're gambling, if you might get a great one or you might get one that's jumpy and all that, they're so expensive to roll the dice on.
Yeah, fair enough.
Like I don't know about up there, but down here they're $4,000.
I think for a pure, there's not, most of the guys that are making them here, I think, are making hybrids of some sort. But I think they're a little cheaper here, but not much. The hybrids aren't, at least from the 2 or 3 people that I know, you're in that $2,500 to $3,000 range.
Yeah, so that would be much more palatable to me.
Yeah,
but if I'm rolling the dice, I don't want to do it for $4,000. If I'm paying $4,000 for a bird, I want it to be.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think there is a breeder back in Ontario that when he was making them, I think he was asking $45 for the females and like $4 for the males or something.
Hey, if you promise me that it's going to be, the bird I want for $4,000, that's one thing.
Yeah, well, goshawks. there's only one promise I can make you is that eventually they will kill themselves. But that's about it. Or they'll make you want to kill yourself. One of those two things. But I don't know. There's nothing. I mean, with goshawks, there's nothing better than a good one, and there's a lot of good ones, and then there's nothing worse than a bad one. They're just goshawks are goshawks. They're like.
I'm doing another imprint next year, and I think you know how that goes. I say like that's it for a while. If that one dies, I'm good. I'm taking a break from goshawks for the foreseeable future, but I'll probably have a deposit on a goshawk every single year for the rest of my life.
Goshawks they're so sexy. I mean, they just are.
They're addicting.
I mean, they're addicting. They're so addicting. I mean, I'm just like, okay, I'm done. Why not just make your life simple, especially as you get older and, I got family. I got my first grandchild now. And I'm like, oh man, just get a freaking hare hawk, whatever, dude. Who cares what Casey says? And it's just like, it's, but goshawks are just, there's the wildness. I mean, it's like prairie falcons the same way. People say, oh, peregrines and gyr falcons. Nah. If I walk into a field meet and there's a beautiful passage prairie that's tame, but is just statuesque, isn't acting like a stupid imprint, I will want to go look at the passage prairie. Screw the gyr falcons. I mean, I've seen enough to last 5 lifetimes. It's like, and nothing against gyr falcons, but what it is prairie falcons, when you look in their eyes, I mean, their eyes, first off, they're, size for size, they got bigger eyes than any other falcon out there. I mean, their eyes are huge compared to their body. And they have a wildness in them, like a true, people say, well, Alaska's wild. Well, prairie falcons, I'm not talking wild because they're nutbags. I'm talking wild because they just have a wild nature about them and look. Goshawks are the same way. I mean, Cooper socks are fierce and kick out. I mean, that's probably my favorite bird on the planet are Cooper socks. And I've had a couple of really good ones. And people say out of all the birds you've had, and I've had way too many birds in my career, I'll be the first to admit. People say, well, you can only pick one. There is a hand-me-down imprint female Cooper sock that I got secondhand from a guy that did a really good job with her. He just lost interest. And I got her, and I didn't get her with all the bullshit per se. Because when you hand over an imprint that's raised well to somebody else, then no more vocalization. They're almost like a tame passage bird. And I would take a Cooper sock, that bird, out of all the birds I've ever had. But goshawks are wild, or just something about them. I mean, there's an analogy maybe I shouldn't say on a podcast because it might offend some people. But goshawks are they're like the hot blonde. And this could go, I don't want to make this sexist because it could go for men or women.
Yeah, it could be the hot blonde guy, right?
Yeah, it could be the hot blonde guy. They're just they're that partner per se that you shouldn't be with, but I'm not going to get into details, but it's so fun when you are with them, hint, hint, and all the other things that you do that it's worth dealing with the craziness. And boy, do they look good, and all your friends are going, dude, what are you doing? Dump her, dump him. They're not good for you.
She tried to stab you. Like, what are you doing?
Or in defense of the women on here, he cheated on you multiple times, or that woman's crazy. You're going to find a bunny on your stove boiling in a pot of water. And it's just like, but you're just like, I know, but you don't understand. When we spend time together, there's moments when we spend time together that he treats me so well, or she treats me so good. And all your friends are like, all right, whatever.
Yeah.
No, I know what you're saying. Yeah. I would use for me personally, I have a different view of it.
Yeah. We can talk on the phone later.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I don't want to arouse you too much.
Yeah, exactly. But but they are. I mean, like I said, there's nothing better than a great goshawk. Probably nothing worse than a bad one.
Yeah, and that's the thing, man, because I talk about it on the show so many times, but it's just and people oh, they love talking about goshawks. Yeah, I grew up flying red tails, and my sponsors flew goshawks for freaking 20 years, and I watched them fly goshawks, and I wanted nothing to do with it until I got my sponsor said, hey, come fly this bird. I don't have any time to fly it. Just go take it and go fly it. Just go grab it from the mew, go to the field, go fly it. And when you get that thing on your glove and you watch it rip off your glove and catch something, like it's like doing I've never done like any hard drugs, but it's like doing heroin, and you're like, oh my God, like I have to do this again. I have to do it again. I have to do it again. I'm going to spend money and do it again. And I'm going to reconfigure my whole life to continue to do this subsect of falconry because it's so addicting. And you don't get it till you do it. And when you go out with a friend and their bird won't come down for an hour, or it takes off and they're chasing it around, you're like, why would you deal with this? And it's like, when it goes good, it goes freaking good.
And so a good gos, I think for me, a good goshawk is, if anybody walked in a field of all levels of falconry and everybody agreed, that's a good bird right there. Then, okay, so what is that? What defines that? And you say, well, that's a good red tail. Okay, well, that red tail, it kills 3 or 4 cottontail every day. It kills 2 black-tailed jackrabbits every day. Okay. And I'm not saying that's not possible, but then does that red tail kill pheasants 5 minutes after it killed the 2 jackrabbits? No. I'm not saying you can't catch. I mean, I've caught a couple of pheasants with red tails before. I've caught valley quail with a red tail, of all things. And red tails are surprisingly really crafty and good on rough grouse. But a good goshawk at any given moment, it's almost like a versatile gun dog. Like I've always been a versatile breed guy, short hairs or Brittany's. I've literally killed ducks with my Brittany flushing out of a pond. And then while I'm feeding the peregrine up, I look over and she's 100 yards out in the field and she's pointing Huns. Well, that's a goshawk. A goshawk, they can be as good on fur as any bird out there. I mean, red tails are phenomenal on fur, obviously. But 5 minutes later, if you see a rough grouse or you see a Hungarian partridge or a pheasant, yeah, I'm going to kill that too. You're not saying that with any other bird, really. I'm not, there's always exceptions to the rules. I know Harris hawks can be really versatile too, but not like a goshawk, a good goshawk. Now, if the goshawk's a wingnut and it's spooked out of its brain, all of a sudden it's the least versatile bird on the planet. It just flies off and you're just like, why did I even get this thing? But when they're focused and anything's game, anything is, the sky's the limit. It's coming home with you. They're just so versatile. And to me, that's the appeal. And then they do it at a level, physically at a level like a super athlete. I mean, they're just, some of them are like Marvel superheroes. I mean, they're just like, wow. Some, like I think I touched on it earlier, I flew goshawks off the glove on upland game for years. That's all I did. And then when I went into the forest, I'm like, I'm going to try the snowshoe hare thing, because snowshoe hares are like unicorns. They're the same color, and you see just as many unicorns as you do a snowshoe hare. Like, I remember the first few times I saw a snowshoe hare, it was like literally seeing the unicorn. I was like, oh my God, there it is. It's like, I saw 3 chupacabras and I saw 1 snowshoe hare today. It was phenomenal. But then you get a goshawk into the forest, especially when I was up in the Rockies and how dense it was up in the Canadian Rockies. You see goshawks do, number one, you're seeing them do what they're really naturally made to do. You're not asking them to fly out in wide open, huge open areas. Yeah, you're seeing a sprint when you're hunting upland game in those big open areas, and it makes for great video. But when you're in the forest and you're seeing them fly almost as fast as a wide open flight on pheasant or Hungarian partridge, and they're flying through the forest that fast, and then as they're closing in on whatever they're going after, and you're seeing them fly through vegetation without even barely clipping a branch. And I'm not talking like tree trunks and, big forks and trees. I'm talking like branches that are the size of your pinky. And they're flying through it. And when they flew through it, you don't even see the branches moving, like you just brushed up against them. And you're thinking, how in the hell did it even get through that 20 feet of sticks without even barely touching one and slam a rough grouse before it could even leave the log it was sitting on? And when you see that, you're just like, okay, I respect, the old, the traditions, especially in England and Europe, of fist-hawking goshawks. I mean, I get it. I love it. And I'm for all types of falconry. But I wish that everybody could see goshawks in the forest that are flown in the forest every day in and day out. And when you see them, whether it be on snowshoe hare or on rough grouse, especially, then you start to see, oh my God, these things are able to do so much more. I mean, it's like stuff you'd see in the Matrix. Like they just do stuff that like defies laws of physics.
It's frustrating going from goshawks to a red tail in a lot of ways, where like you see the limitations of the red tail and you think back to last year when you had a really good goshawk and you're like, yeah, that wouldn't have been an issue with her.
It's funny you say that, because it's one of the last, big things that I want to touch on is people say, well, what do you think the best snowshoe hare hawk is in my habitat? I'm not talking sagebrush or, grassy fields behind Walmart. I'm talking up here in straight up legit forest, like you'd see in upstate New York or any place up in Canada, any of those areas where it's dense forest. Red tails, surprisingly enough, are badass. And I've flown 2 now in 15 years since I've been in Alberta. I flew a female and I flew a male 2 years ago. I flew the male. And our vegetation here basically is, you got the forest floor, you got some logs everywhere, deadfall, and you've got anywhere between chest high and 10 feet tall willows and alders that you're just swimming through. You just literally put your hoodie on over your bald head so it doesn't get any more scars than it already has. And you just start swimming. You literally start swimming through these branches with your head down so you don't get your eyes gouged out, trying to follow your bird and your Brittany, just trying to keep up with the flight. And then when you hear the squealing, you got to run through that shit to get to them. So you have this vegetation, let's call it 6 to 10 feet high. And then the next bit of vegetation are the aspen trees that are 40, 50 feet up. So there's about a 20-foot space in there that a red tail can easily fly through. And surprisingly enough, you get them in some mixed vegetation, they can actually thread the needle pretty damn good too. But then the beauty of the red tail, and I can't say this enough, and you red tail guys, we all know it, is if they're having a hard time threading the needle, they just go, F it, I'll just go through it. And they literally punch through stuff that my goshawks will never, even my Finnish female will never punch through.
I suspect that a red tail could be one of the better, if not the best, snowshoe hare bird.
I think now let me back up though. If you get them in mostly evergreen, like you find snowshoe hare, like, dude, I know Casey and I have talked about it quite a bit. And I think up in the Adirondacks, it looks like there's a fair number of them. If you get too much evergreen going on and spruce trees, then the red tails are prone to land on the very tip tops of those. And when they look down, they see nothing but spruce limbs, on pine and spruce trees. They can't even see the hare. Where the goshawks, they get down and dirty and get into that vegetation, and they'll take lower branches, and they tend to do considerably better in an evergreen environment. But if you can get it into willows and alders and deciduous type habitat, where once the leaves fall, there might be a million sticks. And I would put the areas that I hawk up against anywhere in North America as for the amount of sticks per square foot. But they can still see them. And if you put a red tail on that, I would defend you on that, Aaron. I would say, I wouldn't say that there's not one female goshawk that's the best out there. At the end of the day, goshawks are hard to beat in the forest. But if you took 10 red tails and 10 goshawks, I would argue that you might get more snowshoe hare with the red tail.
It's just amazing when you'll see like 6 foot of brush, the red tail's above, and you see the red tail come down like a missile and just punch straight through, and it sounds like a cinder block falling 100 feet into the ground.
It's, and what happens here is they'll see the snowshoe hare like 200 feet out running through the forest, and they'll get in that little gap in the canopy. They'll get in that little area, and there's aspen trees every 10 feet. But, easily enough for a red tail to fly through, though. And they'll fly full speed beneath the aspen tree leaves, beneath the canopy of the aspens, but above the willow and the alder. They'll fly full speed through the forest, just like a goshawk. And then when they get there, they do that they fake to the left, and then they use that momentum and go back to the right. And then they do the fully inverted upside down, like corkscrew, like you see at the amusement park. And they use that momentum to literally slam themselves into 8 feet of brush, like stuff that moose can barely get through. And they've got 1 foot on the hare's face. And they're tangled up in a knot. And with a red tail, that's all it takes. And you're just going, oh my God. My goshawk would have threaded the needle 800 times and made it look really kind of cool. And like in MMA, it's like some jujitsu specialist, Royce Gracie, comes in and he's just going to lock you up and get you in all these arm bars and all this. And then you get some guy like Matt Hughes that just walks in and just picks you up and body slams you and says, hey, how'd that jujitsu work out for you? It's just, that's red tail. Red tails are just like, yeah, I'll do a few moves, but push comes to shove, I'm just going to go through whatever's in my way. And that's probably the best way to describe it. Like it's just.
Yeah, we're lucky to have some really exceptional North American falconry birds at our disposal.
Oh, 100%.
Our native falcons and red tails, Harris hawks, goshawks, all that stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely, 100%. So,
well, we appreciate you coming on, Jeremy. We haven't had a nice long conversation like this in a minute, so it's refreshing.
No, I appreciate it. I've listened to pretty much all your podcasts, and in all fairness, I've listened to most everybody else's podcast too. But you guys are. I'm a construction guy, so I find it easy to talk to you guys. I'm a Christian. I'm a recovering F-bomber. So you may have heard a few slight F-bombs in this, but I'm trying my best to not drop F-bombs anymore. I got diagnosed with a rare and aggressive cancer last year that it looks like I'm beating. So because of that, I've kind of dedicated my life to a few other things now that are way beyond us and more important. I know Casey's touched on this as well. And so I'm trying to not F-bomb as much, but I still enjoy it when it does slip out though. Feels kind of good.
It does feel good to drop one every now and then.
Exactly. So no, but I appreciate you having me on, and I could go on for hours about goshawks and hours about falcons on big upland game flights, but maybe another time.
I think we really touched on, this is one of the rare episodes where we covered a lot, but we touched on pretty much everything that we wanted to touch on in a good amount of detail, because you really broke it down for us. We appreciate it.
I appreciate that. Well, you guys make it easy. I mean, you guys really do.
Well, we're professionals. Yeah. Jeremy, this is what we do.
That's what we do.
That's it. Yeah. Perfect.
Yeah. Awesome.
Well, thanks again, Jeremy.
I appreciate it, guys. Thank you.
Thank you.